Chapter 101. Liberty shared. There's a part 2 to the story. It details how Grandmom was admitted to the hospital and prepared for surgery, with a date already set, all thanks to the generosity of kind netizens. She continued, the netizens are really coming down hard on us, labeling us as ingrates. According to the comments, Granddad and Grandmom had endured countless hardships while raising them. Yet now that they had finally achieved success, people believed they had repaid their grandparents with nothing. Adding to the accusations, many pointed out that they hadn't even visited Grandmom during her illness in the hospital. They're saying we're heartless and a disgrace to our grandparents and deceased parents. Liberty felt a slow burn of anger as she scrolled through the vicious comments all day, especially whenever her parents were dragged into the discussion. In her heart, she knew that Mom and Dad had been far better children to Granddad and Grandmom than her uncles had ever been while they were alive. Yet this was the treatment Mom and Dad received even after death. Liberty, don't let those keyboard warriors get to you, Serenity advised. They don't know the truth and will believe anything they read. It's sad, really. They think they're being noble and compassionate, but they're nothing more than pawns being used to hurt innocent people. Serenity locked eyes with Zachary before turning back to comfort her sister. Don't waste your energy on them, Liberty. We know what kind of people they truly are. I'll take care of your diary and give them a taste of their own medicine. Zachary interjected at just the right moment. I have connections in the press. We'll fight back. He intended to make sure everyone learned just how ruthless the Hunts really were. Were Serenity's cousins truly advancing smoothly in their careers? Zachary was eager to watch how their futures unfolded, and to see whether their apparent security would last after all this. Zachary's ruthless reputation would mean nothing if he failed to bring the Hunts to their downfall. Meanwhile, Serenity took the initiative to gather evidence, snapping photos of Liberty's diary and recording voice notes to release on Twitter. Before long, the response from the so-called ungrateful granddaughter went viral, largely due to Zachary's influence. The tweet quickly drowned out the gossip surrounding Zachary and Elisa, shooting straight to the top of the trending list. Liberty's diary exposed the truth of what had really happened. At just 15 years old, her writing reflected a raw, youthful perspective. The sudden loss of their parents, combined with relatives aggressively demanding a share of the life insurance money, forced the sisters to confront a treacherous world they had never imagined. Chapter 102. Between the lines of Serenity's diary, a heavy weight of despair, anger, sadness, and helplessness was unmistakable. With tears brimming in her eyes, Serenity flipped through the pages as memories of the past came flooding back. Our families, both Dad's side and Mom's side, were tearing each other apart over the insurance money. Everyone was scrambling to secure a larger share, completely disregarding Serenity and me. No one even mentioned adopting us or taking care of us. Mom and Dad were gone, yet all they could think about was the money. What about our feelings? Is this really what family means? Mom, Dad, please come home. Do you have any idea what your daughters are enduring right now? How could you leave Serenity and me behind? It was raining outside. Was it God's way of expressing sorrow for the loss my sister and I were suffering? We no longer had our mom and dad. I cried for them, but they were beyond hearing my pleas. Seeing Serenity's confused expression only made my heart ache even more, and soon she began crying too. Serenity kept asking me when Mom and Dad would come back. She missed them terribly. Holding my sister tightly, I wept alongside her. I had to tell her the cruel truth. Mom and Dad would never return. They had gone to heaven and left us behind. We had become orphans, children without parents. In a desperate bid for money, Granddad and Grandmom insisted that we wouldn't owe them anything if we agreed to give them $600,000. After all, they still had other children who could support them in their retirement. It seemed that all they cared about was money, 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 money. Was money really more important than family? Did they not value their own granddaughters? The amount they demanded felt like blood money, a brutal exchange for the lives of their son and daughter-in-law. Did they have no compassion at all for their dead children amid this financial chaos? I guess once Mom and Dad were gone, the dead no longer mattered to them. In the end, they took the money. Granddad and Grandmom walked away with $600,000. The life insurance money then became a fresh battleground. Mom's side of the family was eager to claim their portion and demanded the remaining half of the payout. Serenity and I were left wondering what would happen if they took everything Mom and Dad had left for us. The mayor, unable to bear the situation any longer, stepped in and insisted that at least part of the money be reserved for our future and education. Even so, Mom's parents still took $400,000. They coldly declared that we would no longer need to take care of them, just as they would no longer care for us. After all, Mom wasn't their biological daughter. The money, they said, was compensation for raising her. Things took an even darker turn when Granddad and Grandmom chased Serenity and me out with a stick, claiming that now that Mom and Dad were dead, the house belonged to them. Through my tears, I tried to protest, reminding them that our parents had built that home. Why couldn't Serenity and I continue living there? Although the townspeople felt sympathy for us, none of them dared to confront Grandmom. My uncles and cousins stood firmly on my grandparents' side, and the locals were warned to stay out of it. Our belongings were thrown onto the floor, and in their fury, they smashed Mom's photo frame. They even threatened to burn Mom and Dad's pictures if we didn't leave immediately. As the heavy rain poured down once more, I clutched a photo of Mom and Dad while gripping Serenity's hand tightly. Carrying our few belongings, we trudged forward through the downpour with heavy hearts, knowing we had no choice but to leave. After all, we were just children, there was no way we could stand up to the adults. I'm so sorry, Mom and Dad. Serenity and I are powerless. We couldn't even protect our home. As readers poured through Liberty's diary entries, the raw reality of her suffering struck a deep chord. Many expressed their heartbreak and rage in the comments. Several townsfolk came forward to support Serenity and Liberty, openly condemning the Hunts for their actions. It finally dawned on the online community that they had been deceived. The grandparents had never truly raised the girls. They hadn't even paid for their education. In fact, the grandparents had pocketed a large portion of the insurance payout they received after the tragic accident that killed their son and daughter-in-law. Chapter 103. In a bold move, Serenity decided to share her sister Liberty's diary pages on Twitter, responding directly to a viral tweet that accused them of being ungrateful granddaughters. Along with excerpts from Liberty's diary, Serenity also presented evidence from their hometown, proving that their grandparents had been living quite comfortably after pocketing several $100,000. It was clear that their children ranked among the wealthiest people in the area. A thought suddenly struck Zachary. His dashcam had likely recorded old Mr. Hunt's arrogant voice when he called Serenity while they were on their way to Liberty's place for dinner. He immediately checked the footage and discovered another crucial piece of evidence stored on the device. Soon after, Serenity uploaded the recording of her conversation with Granddad online, leaving the internet to erupt in outrage, something she no longer cared about. Zachary, however, chose not to hand over the Hunt's complete file to Serenity for public release. Instead, he passed it to Josh, instructing him to disclose the professions and incomes of the Hunt's children and grandchildren while posing as an ordinary netizen. What had started as a triumphant smear campaign for the Hunts quickly turned into a disaster. The same users who had once criticized Liberty and Serenity for being ungrateful now redirected their fury toward the author of the original tweet. Amid the chaos, Mike's media friends hurriedly deleted their retweets, terrified of becoming collateral damage in the backlash from enraged netizens. Serenity reassured Liberty, saying, "Everything's fine now. You don't have to worry anymore. They won't dare ask us for money again. If they contact us at all, it'll only be to apologize and beg us to let this go." Feeling sickened by the whole ordeal, Serenity voiced her disgust, while Liberty lifted her sleeping child and replied, "We've done what we needed to do. Justice will prevail, I truly believe that. Seren, you and Zachary must be exhausted after everything today." After an entire day of running around, it was obvious that Serenity needed to go home and rest. "Go ahead and put Sunny to bed," Zachary said gently. Serenity and Zachary waited until Liberty returned after settling Sunny down before bidding her goodnight and preparing to leave. The day's events had thoroughly drained Serenity. Once they arrived home, Serenity asked politely, "Are you hungry, Mr. York? I can make something for supper." It was true, a friend in need was a friend indeed. Zachary had proven himself time and again whenever Serenity found herself in trouble. Yet despite his unwavering support, there was no romantic spark between them. On top of that, the 6-month marriage contract only added to her uncertainty about their future. Even so, Serenity couldn't deny how much Zachary had done for her, and she felt sincerely grateful. "I'm not hungry," Zachary replied. His dark eyes lingered on her for a brief moment before he added, "Get some rest early." "Good night." "Good night," she answered softly. After exchanging farewells, Zachary returned to his bedroom, while Serenity stayed where she was, watching as he closed and locked the door. The sound made her chuckle quietly. They were barely more than strangers. He was simply fulfilling his duty as her husband, nothing more. Chapter 104. Instead of heading straight to her room, Serenity sat on the balcony swing, staring at the flowers below and the stars above. After calming her thoughts, she eventually returned to her bedroom. It was a peaceful, tranquil night for the young couple. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the Hunts were trapped in a full-blown media storm. Although the online frenzy had little effect on Liberty and Serenity, Serenity's response tweet carried devastating weight. It included not only Liberty's diary but also recorded testimonies from townspeople. Even the town council publicly backed Serenity's claims. Resourceful netizens soon dug up the Hunts' professional and financial backgrounds. The family lived in villas and held stable jobs, earning annual incomes ranging from several $100,000 to over $1 million. As for the older generation, both old Mr. and Mrs. Hunt possessed savings amounting to hundreds of thousands. Despite clearly having enough money to cover their grandmother's medical bills, the Hunts still tried to squeeze compensation from their 2 granddaughters. This did not sit well with the online public, especially after the phone recording between old Mr. Hunt and Serenity surfaced. The grandfather sounds more focused on bullying his granddaughters into paying hospital bills instead of using his own money. It's not like he doesn't have other children, all of them are doing well. Why not ask them? Why dump this responsibility on the granddaughters when there are other children? They even signed a contract saying no one owed anything after receiving the insurance money. The nerve of these people is unbelievable. Just listen to that recording. Is the grandfather joking, or is he really this shameless? I can't believe he expects the granddaughters to pay for gas and accommodation. The children should be the ones caring for their sick parents in the hospital, not dumping everything on the granddaughters. Why are only the girls being targeted while the grandsons contribute nothing? This is blatant discrimination. John, a senior executive at one of Stone Group's subsidiaries, quickly became the primary target of the backlash. Once netizens uncovered the Hunts' employment and income details, the pressure intensified, especially since John had instructed his secretary to fabricate a narrative that portrayed him favorably. Countless users began tagging Stone Group's official account, demanding John's dismissal. "Those ungrateful brats!" Old Mr. Hunt roared from his hospital bed. "They're trying to ruin my children and grandchildren. I'll make sure those girls pay for this. What's wrong with asking them to cover their grandmother's medical bills? They didn't even bother to visit or help." Old Mrs. Hunt echoed his anger, already itching to leave the hospital and confront the girls herself. The entire family crowded into the cramped ward to discuss their next move. Mike was frantic, and his friends were furious with him for twisting the truth and dragging them into this mess. A few even considered cutting ties with him entirely, calling him a despicable person. "What do we do now, Mike?" his father asked anxiously. "I've seen the comments, this is bad." While some things still seemed manageable, one question loomed large: how had the public uncovered such detailed information about their jobs and salaries? One thing was certain: John had to keep his position. Yet waves of angry netizens continued bombarding Stone Group's official account, demanding his termination. Because of his packed schedule, John couldn't make it to the hospital, but he planned to contact Mike directly to coordinate their response. In an attempt to regain control, John hired professional trolls to whitewash the family's image. He even paid to suppress Serenity's tweet, but no matter what he tried, the post's traffic refused to die down. Instead, the hired trolls were overwhelmed by furious netizens and brutally shut down. In the end, public outrage proved stronger than money or manipulation. Chapter 105. Chris Hunt, John's father, addressed Mike with obvious concern. John's job is the priority. If he loses his position over this, he didn't finish his sentence, but the look on his face made it clear that he was holding Mike responsible. After all, it had been Mike's idea to turn public opinion against Liberty and Serenity. Uncle Chris, John has been with his company for years, Mike said quickly. His boss won't fire him over something this trivial. I'll make it clear that John has nothing to do with the situation. Since Mike ran a home-based business, the online backlash had no real impact on his livelihood. Feeling slightly reassured, Chris decided to call John and urged him to clarify his innocence before his job was put at risk. These girls are unbelievable, one of the uncles complained bitterly. If they didn't want to pay, that's fine, but why drag all of us down with them? Although the Hunts' tweet accusing their granddaughters of being ungrateful gained some traction, it never reached the level they had hoped for. Serenity's response, however, completely stole the spotlight, triggering a flood of calls from friends, relatives, and even strangers. Many of those strangers didn't bother hiding their contempt for the Hunts. Unbeknownst to them, Liberty and Serenity may have been enduring cyberbullying, but it was the Hunts who were now caught in the eye of the storm. The backlash spilled beyond the internet and into real life. Some people even showed up at the hospital to confront them. If not for hospital security stepping in and threatening to call the police, the Hunts might have faced public humiliation head-on, possibly even having rotten eggs thrown at them. Finally, one of Serenity's aunts spoke up. I never agreed with this decision in the first place. Mom. More than 10 years ago, Dad had made an agreement with the girls, clearly stating that they wouldn't owe us anything. But now that Mom's health is failing, everyone suddenly turns on Liberty and Serenity, pressuring them for money. It's not that Mom and Dad don't have children, we're all financially stable. As their children, it's our responsibility to take care of Mom during times like this. Why are we dumping everything on Liberty and Serenity? Don't underestimate them. Have you all forgotten what happened 3 years ago? You know exactly how you treated those girls after their parents died. Do you honestly think you can force them to pay by fabricating stories online? Think carefully, if they strike back, who do you think will suffer the most? There are only 2 of them, but the consequences could destroy all of us. A heavy silence fell over the room. The family had always stood united when it came to money. Now that everything was unraveling, they began pointing fingers at one another. After a while, old Mr. Hunt finally broke the silence. What should we do now? Regret flickered across his face. He never imagined Serenity would record their phone conversation. We need to contact Serenity and get her to delete that tweet, he said grimly. If this escalates any further, it won't end well for us. Mike, reach out to her and tell her to take it down. At the very least, they shouldn't be responsible for their grandmother's medical expenses, old Mr. Hunt said, convinced it was a simple fix. Mike exhaled heavily. She blocked my number. After a pause, he added, I can post another tweet from Grandmom and Granddad's accounts, an apology to Serenity and Liberty. We can spin it as Mom and Dad realizing their mistakes and regretting how they treated the girls. Now that they're older and sick, all they want is to reconnect with their granddaughters. Thus, they resorted to such a desperate move. I won't apologize to them, old Mrs. Hunt snapped. Yes, we signed that agreement, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still their grandmother. Shouldn't they come visit me when I'm sick? Shouldn't they pay for my surgery? She remained stubborn and unmoved. Just ignore the nasty comments, she added coldly. It's not like those people online can actually do anything to us. Chapter 105 Chris Hunt, John's father, turned to Mike and stated, John's job is the priority. If he loses his job over this, Chris's words trailed off, but the expression on his face clearly indicated that he was directing his frustration towards Mike. It had been Mike's suggestion to turn public opinion against Liberty and Serenity. Uncle Chris, John has been with his company for a long time. His boss won't fire him over something so trivial. I'll make sure to clarify that John isn't involved in any of this, Mike reassured. Since Mike operated a home business, the ongoing online situation didn't negatively impact his work. Feeling somewhat relieved, Chris decided to call John and urged him to clarify his innocence before he risked his job. These girls are unbelievable, one of the uncles lamented. If they didn't want to pay, that's one thing. But why did they have to drag us down like this? While the Hunts' tweet concerning their ungrateful granddaughters had gone viral, it didn't reach as many people as they had hoped. However, Serenity's response gained substantial traction, prompting an influx of calls to the Hunts from friends and family. Even numerous strangers reached out, eager to express their opinions about the situation. The Hunts remained uncertain if Liberty and Serenity were victims of cyberbullying, but they found themselves in the midst of a brewing storm. Public backlash was surfacing both online and in real life. There were individuals who appeared at the hospital to confront them. Had it not been for the hospital's security personnel intervening and threatening to involve the police, the Hunts might have faced the public's wrath head-on. The family could have even faced the embarrassment of having rotten eggs thrown at them. Finally, one of Serenity's aunts spoke up, saying, "I was never in favor of this decision. Mom. Over a decade ago, Dad made a deal with the girls, they wouldn't owe us anything. But now, with Mom's health declining, it feels like everyone is turning against the girls, pressuring them for money. It's not that Mom and Dad don't have us, we're all financially stable. As children, it's our duty to care for Mom in her time of need. Why are we making things harder for Liberty and Serenity? It's not fair to push them to their limits. Remember what happened 3 years ago? You know how you treated the girls when their parents passed away. Do you really think you can force them to pay up by spreading false stories online? Consider this, who will be left worse off if they decide to fight back? There are only 2 of them against our larger group." Silence fell over the room. The family had once been united in pursuit of money, but now that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, blame was being tossed around like a hot potato. After a bit of time, old Mr. Hunt finally broke the silence, asking, "What's our next move?" He regretted reaching out to Serenity, never imagining she would record their discussion. "Let's try to convince Serenity to delete that tweet. If this escalates, it won't end well for us," he suggested. "Mike, get in touch with her and ask her to take it down. At the very least, we don't want to burden them with paying for their grandmother's medical expenses." Old Mr. Hunt thought the solution would be that straightforward. Mike, feeling defeated, replied, "She blocked my number." After a brief pause, he added, "I could send out another tweet in Grandmom and Granddad's names to apologize to Serenity and Liberty. We might be able to turn this around by showing the girls that our parents acknowledge their mistakes and genuinely regret their past actions. With their health declining, all they really want now is to reconnect with their granddaughters. Thus, they took such a drastic step. There's absolutely no chance I'll apologize to them. Yes, we did sign that agreement, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still their grandmother. Shouldn't they come see me when I'm ill? Shouldn't they cover my surgery expenses?" Old Mrs. Hunt stood her ground firmly. "Just ignore the negative comments. It's not as if the online users can actually harm us." Chapter 107. Zachary tightened his facial muscles and shot Serenity a warning look. "Mr. York," Serenity asked playfully, "can I kiss you?" Zachary was taken aback. Did she have no sense of propriety at all? How could she ask a man something like that so boldly? "Your smile is stunning. It completely took my breath away. I just want to hold you and express my feelings." "Serenity, you certainly have some nerve." "My cheeks are right here," she said, playfully slapping her face. Zachary winced at her antics. "I only said that because we're married. I mean, we're legally married, so a kiss isn't exactly a crime." As Zachary instinctively took a couple of steps back, Serenity burst into laughter. He was clearly flustered. Still, she had to admit she was partly responsible. After all, the last time she had suddenly touched his face, she had caught him completely off guard. Just as her laughter reached its peak, Zachary suddenly closed the distance. He scooped her into his arms and leaned in, kissing her and instantly silencing her giggles. Serenity's laughter stopped abruptly. Her eyes widened in shock as she stared at his face, now only inches away. She had only been teasing him because she found his smile beautiful. It was fun to mess with him since, when it came to intimacy, he was clearly a novice compared to her. It had never crossed her mind that he would actually act on her words. But he did. Zachary pressed his lips against hers only long enough to shut her up. He didn't linger or explore further. He released her almost immediately and stepped back. With a flick of his finger, he tapped her forehead lightly. Serenity yelped exaggeratedly. "That's what you get for being so cheeky," Zachary said, amusement lacing his voice. With a slightly raspy tone, he calmly took his seat at the table and began eating breakfast as if nothing had happened. Serenity, however, stood frozen. She ran her fingers across her lips and watched her husband, who was focused on his meal with an unreadable expression. Who had won this round? It was obvious, she had lost. The shock lingered. Zachary, having snatched a last-minute victory, looked radiant, like the sun itself, as he enjoyed his food. In the game of love, he realized that shamelessness was sometimes the key to winning. He had completely outplayed her. Lacking the courage to retaliate with another kiss, Serenity sat down across from him and shot him an annoyed glare. Zachary found her reaction amusing. He had assumed that Serenity, with her past relationship experience, would dominate him. Yet it turned out she was just as inexperienced as he was. When they signed the marriage papers, Serenity had mentioned a relationship from 8 years ago, most likely her first love, innocent and fleeting. In truth, both of them were blank slates. "Why did you make such an elaborate breakfast today?" Serenity asked. "Is this your way of thanking me for yesterday?" "Absolutely, Captain Obvious," Zachary replied with a grin as he piled food onto his plate. "I was looking out for both of us. You're my wife. It wouldn't look good if anything happened to you. But since you appreciate it, I'll admit, I enjoyed the breakfast." Chapter 108. "You don't need to send money for the car," Zachary said, steering the conversation back to the recent purchase. Ever since the car was bought, Serenity had tried transferring $50,000 to Zachary's phone each day, since she didn't have his bank account details. Zachary rejected every single transfer. The very first payment had bounced straight back into her account. "I bought you a car, and that reflects well on me," Zachary explained. "Appearances matter. Even though I'm busy, there will be times when I need to take you to business dinners. It would be embarrassing if people found out my wife rides a broken e-bike." To him, the car was purely about image. "I thought it was an apology gift," Serenity retorted. After a brief pause, Zachary replied, "It serves both purposes." "In that case, don't give me any living allowance for the rest of the year," she said firmly. "You've already bought me a car." Zachary lifted his chin and studied her without responding. She took his silence as agreement and felt relieved. At least now, she believed she didn't owe him anything. "Don't worry about your relatives for now," Zachary continued. "They seem stubborn, but that won't last. They'll apologize eventually. You and your sister should take your grandparents to court over your parents' house and make them pay at least half, if not all of it. There's no reason to go easy on people who take advantage of you." If it were up to him, Zachary would make sure the Hunts paid for everything they had done. Still, he knew this was Serenity's family matter. He could advise, but the final decision was hers. "I'll take them to court to reclaim my parents' house after Grandmom's surgery," Serenity said. "All right," Zachary replied. After all, they were still her grandparents, and she couldn't completely harden her heart. After breakfast, Serenity went into the kitchen and grabbed 2 containers. "Most of the food is untouched. I'll pack it for you to take to the office. We shouldn't waste food." Zachary frowned. As a CEO, carrying packed food felt beneath him. "I'm full. I don't need it." "Okay. Then I'll take it to the shop. Jasmine loves my cooking, and Sean does too. He usually stops by on his way to work. I'll text him to come over." She silently reminded herself never to cook so much again. Even though Sean was just a friend, simply mentioning his name visibly darkened Zachary's expression. After a moment of silence, he said stiffly, "Give me the food. Callum works in the same office. I'll bring some for him." That was far better than giving it to Sean. "Just don't cook this much again to thank me," Zachary added. "It's only the 2 of us. How many people are you trying to feed?" I know, Serenity replied. I went overboard today. Callum, right? Zachary nodded. Sure. Once the food was packed, Serenity cleared the table and washed the dishes. She then stepped onto the balcony to water her plants. With the flowers blooming beautifully, she snapped several photos as she always did. Zachary rarely used Facebook, but ever since he got married, he found himself checking Serenity's updates regularly. Through her posts, he felt like he was slowly getting to know her better. Whenever she posted pictures of flowers, he was always the first to view them. Still, he never clicked the like button. Some things were better kept secret. Chapter 109. Zachary lingered by the balcony door, silently watching Serenity for a moment before deciding to head off to work. This brief pause went unnoticed by her. With his wife's lunch carefully packed, Zachary made his way to the office. Just before leaving, he called out to Serenity, "I'm off to work." "Drive safe," she replied warmly. Zachary closed the door behind him and went down the stairs, carrying 2 containers of food. At the bottom, his bodyguards were already waiting, some standing, some leaning, others seated among the greenery. When they spotted Zachary approaching with the lunch containers, they immediately rose to their feet and stared at him intently. Not a single one dared to step forward. Zachary was momentarily speechless. What was going on? Did they suddenly not recognize him just because he was holding lunch boxes? "Sir." Reacting quickly, Jim hurried over and carefully took the packed food from Zachary's hands. Without saying a word, he headed straight for the Rolls-Royce. Soon, the luxurious car drove out of the neighborhood, escorted by the bodyguards' vehicles. From the balcony, Serenity happened to glance down and saw the familiar convoy of luxury sedans leaving the area. At the very end of the line, she noticed her husband's national MPV. It was always better to give way to expensive cars rather than disrupt their lane. After all, getting into an accident with them would mean repair costs far beyond what an ordinary person could afford. This neighborhood was clearly home to the ultra-wealthy, especially with someone owning a $10 million Rolls-Royce. Serenity couldn't help but wonder how much Zachary had paid for their house. Although Zachary held a senior executive position at a major corporation, Serenity realized she knew little beyond that. She had never asked him for more details. Since Zachary kept his guard up around her, she worried that prying into his work might cause him to overthink. After he left, she watered her flowers and then sat on the swing. With some quiet time to herself, she began reading the comments left by netizens following her bold response. As she scrolled, Serenity felt relieved to see many people criticizing her relatives. Some netizens suggested that she should forgive and forget, arguing that the past was already behind her and that her grandmother was now old and sick. Still, she felt comforted whenever others stepped in to defend her against such remarks. It was a clear reminder that one should never judge someone without walking in their shoes. If those people were in her position, they likely wouldn't be so quick to let things go. Very few could truly bury the past, no matter how easy it sounded in words. After resting for a while, Serenity decided to go out. Naturally, her first thought was to visit her sister. However, when she arrived at Liberty's place, she learned that Liberty had already gone grocery shopping with her son and wouldn't be back anytime soon. With that, Serenity decided to head to the bookshop instead. Meanwhile, in the COO's office, Callum stepped out of the pantry with a freshly brewed cup of coffee. Just then, Zachary knocked and entered the room. "Zach," Callum greeted as he walked over. Spotting the packed food boxes in Zachary's hands, he grinned and joked, "What's this? Are you here to deliver me breakfast?" Chapter 110. Zachary placed the packed food on Callum's desk and said gruffly, "Serenity knows we work at the same company. She made extra breakfast and asked me to bring some for you. It's not healthy to eat out all the time." "You used to eat out all the time too," Callum pointed out. Even if the meals were served at their own hotel, it still counted as eating out. Setting his coffee aside, Callum eagerly opened one of the containers. His eyes lit up as he lifted the lid. "Ever since I tasted Serenity's cooking last Saturday, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Wow! Just look at this: variety, quantity, and presentation. Callum exclaimed as he opened the second container. This has to be delicious. He gasped at Serenity's creativity. Not only was she skilled in crafts, but her cooking was equally impressive. No wonder Nana liked Serenity so much and insisted that Zach marry her. She truly had beauty, grace, and talent all in one. Seeing Callum's excitement, Zachary casually said, "She woke up early to prepare a nutritious breakfast as a thank you for your help. I couldn't finish it all, so she packed some for you." Callum fell silent for a moment. Then he curled his lips into a smirk. "So basically, she only packed the food you didn't eat?" Zachary froze. Had he known, he would have taken at least a bite of everything. Callum definitely wouldn't be so enthusiastic if he were eating Zachary's leftovers. "Anything else, Zach?" Callum asked. "What? You're already trying to kick me out after I brought you food?" Zachary shot him a mock glare. His gaze then landed on a copper wire craft sitting in the corner of the desk, a miniature tree. He picked it up and examined it closely. "This piece, it's from the same artist as the ones Nana." Nana had proudly displayed Serenity's craftworks all over the house. They were impossible to miss. "Good eye," Callum said as he began eating. "Serenity made it. When I dropped Nana off at the shop, she was restocking inventory and gave me this miniature copper tree. There's a reason Nana favors her," Callum continued with admiration. "She's genuinely talented. It's like she breathes life into her work. Ever since I put this on display, everyone's been complimenting it. A lot of them even went online to buy one. I recommended Serenity's online shop to them," he added confidently. "It should help boost her sales." Zachary set the miniature tree back down and said quietly, "Enjoy your breakfast. Don't forget to get back to work afterward. No slacking." With that, he turned and left. "Mouth full," Callum called out, "Bye, Zach. See you around." Zachary paused at the door and glanced back at the tiny copper tree. He said nothing before opening the door and walking out. Watching his retreating figure, Callum chuckled. Is he jealous? Zachary had clearly been fixated on the copper wire tree. A complicated feeling stirred in his chest. Although he was Serenity's husband, there was little warmth between them. Still, it bothered him that Serenity had given her craft to Callum while he received nothing. His pride wouldn't allow him to ask her for one. Yet the absence of a copper wire plant on his own desk left him feeling strangely excluded. The realization sat heavily with him, carrying an unexpected sting of disappointment toward Serenity. Chapter 111. Serenity was completely unaware that her husband was feeling slightly jealous as she headed to the shop. With some free time on her hands, she turned her attention back to making her handicrafts. Jasmine noticed Serenity intently crafting a miniature tree and asked curiously, "Serenity, why have you been so focused on making these miniature trees lately? Is it some kind of trending item?" Having just finished her latest piece, Serenity took a short break. Hearing Jasmine's question, she beamed and replied, "My online shop has been doing really well recently, and this miniature tree is the best-selling item. I've received a ton of orders for it. Do you think netizens are supporting you and Liberty after seeing your response online? Is that why your shop is getting so much attention?" Jasmine asked. Serenity thought for a moment before shaking her head. "I don't think so. The Hunts only posted my childhood photo. They didn't have my phone number or any personal details. Besides, the original tweet was deleted, and those influencers removed their posts too. It seemed likely that the influencers were worried about retaliation from the Hunts. Fortunately, Mr. York's gossip news became more popular than my trending story. That gave me time to recover before netizens could dig into my past or my workplace. So I don't think the tweet helped my sales at all," Serenity explained. At the mention of Mr. York, Jasmine leaned in and said mysteriously, "I heard from my aunt that Miss Stone was furious because your trending story overshadowed hers. She secretly tried to suppress your topic." Serenity blinked in surprise, then laughed. "If that's true, Miss Stone actually helped me instead." After thinking about it, she laughed again. "I should really thank her. I hope she manages to win Mr. York's heart soon. Miss Stone, the heiress of the Stone Group, was extremely wealthy and powerful. If she wanted to investigate Mr. York, she certainly had the means. Thankfully, no one had overheard their earlier jokes about Mr. York possibly being impotent. That topic was best avoided in the future. Jasmine shrugged casually. We were just gossiping. How would Miss Stone even know whether Mr. York has issues in that department? There haven't been any women around him lately, so who knows if there's really a problem. I don't think Mr. York and Miss Stone will end up together anyway, Jasmine continued. The Yorks and the Stones have had tension for years. If things escalate into a family rivalry, Miss Stone would be stuck in an awkward position. Which side would she choose? She then explained further, neither family would approve of their relationship. Still, I have to admit, Miss Stone is incredibly bold. Publicly confessing her love so extravagantly takes guts. I admire that. Serenity picked up her tools again and continued crafting more miniature trees. That's their business. People like us probably won't ever cross paths with someone like Mr. York. We can listen to the gossip, but there's no need to dwell on it. Has your mom been pushing you to go on blind dates lately? Serenity asked. Not for now. Maybe my aunt said something to her. I have a feeling my aunt will invite me to another dinner party soon. Serenity. Don't even think about dragging me to those gatherings again, Serenity cut in firmly. I'm not interested. She rejected the idea without hesitation. One previous dinner party had been more than enough. It wasn't that she was intimidated by high society, she simply found it distasteful. There'll be plenty of delicious food. Let's go and enjoy ourselves, Jasmine coaxed. I can pay for my own meals, Serenity replied. But are you really willing to spend that much on expensive food? Jasmine countered. You're saving up to buy a house, aren't you? Serenity fell silent. Come on, Seren. We're best friends. I want to experience everything with you. Jasmine exclaimed. It's settled. If my aunt invites me again, I'll tell her you're coming too. We can learn more about high society together. Aunt Sare. Sunny suddenly shouted, interrupting them. Chapter 112. Serenity's conversation with Jasmine came to an abrupt halt. Seeing her sister and nephew walk in, she immediately stopped working, stood up, and came around the cashier counter. Jasmine was even faster. She scooped Sunny into her arms, hugging and kissing him repeatedly. Lifting him high into the air, she made the little boy burst into laughter. Liberty, what brings you here? Serenity asked after checking the time. It was already past 10 o'clock, usually when Liberty would be preparing lunch. If Hank came home without food ready, he would definitely complain. I was bored at home, so I decided to come over, Liberty said. Sunny was also throwing a tantrum because he wanted to see you. She took off her hat and wiped the sweat from her forehead. It's almost November, yet it's still scorching hot. In Wiltspoon, autumn felt more like summer, and winters were mild. Mornings and evenings were cool, but once the sun was out, the heat was unbearable. Aren't you supposed to start cooking soon? Serenity asked. While she didn't believe it was entirely Liberty's duty to cook for her husband, she was still curious. I fed Sunny before coming and brought his milk powder, Liberty replied. He can stay here until the afternoon. We can order takeout later, or I can buy groceries nearby and cook for you girls in your kitchen. As for your brother-in-law, Liberty added coldly, I already measured the pasta and filled a pot with water. He just needs to boil it himself. I also washed some vegetables and left them in the kitchen. He can blanch or stir-fry them. That's his problem. Hearing this, Jasmine couldn't help but laugh. Liberty, are you only doing half that? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? Liberty snapped. If we're splitting everything, then all responsibilities should be shared. What's the point if I'm still doing all the housework? He suggested splitting costs, but he only applies it to money. Liberty was deeply hurt by Hank's recent behavior. That was why she firmly insisted on sharing responsibilities, She wanted to make a statement. She refused to let him use this arrangement to control or threaten her again. During their 3 years of marriage, Liberty had compromised again and again. She gave birth, quit her job, ruined her figure, and received little respect in return. If she didn't stand her ground now, Hank would only see her as easy to bully. Liberty knew that backing down would make her look weak. Both Serenity and Jasmine supported her completely and gave her thumbs up. Since Hank wanted everything split evenly, it was time he experienced what that truly meant. "I remember when Hank treated Liberty so well," Jasmine sighed. "It hasn't even been that long since they got married. What a disappointment." Marriage really did feel like the graveyard of romance. Single people longed for it, while married people often wanted out. Jasmine wasn't in a hurry to get married. She wanted to enjoy her freedom for a few more years. Liberty added bitterly, "My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are the ones behind all this. He trusts his family far too much." Chapter 113. I moved all the gifts Serenity and Zachary bought for me last time into my room because I was furious about this whole going Dutch bullshit. Liberty sat on a chair, clearly distressed. Serenity went into the small kitchen, took out some fruit from the refrigerator, washed it, and brought it over to her. Jasmine poured Liberty a glass of warm water. After taking a few sips, Liberty finally let her guard down. She had come over today feeling wronged and suffocated, desperate to vent to someone she trusted. Liberty knew that if she kept everything bottled up, she would sink into an even darker emotional state. Having known Jasmine for years, she trusted her to keep things confidential. "When I woke up the next morning," Liberty continued, "I felt relieved when I saw that Hank had sent his family away. But before they left, they took all the gifts Serenity and her husband gave me." She paused, her anger rising. "My sister-in-law even took some of Sonny's toys. I was livid when I found out, but Hank brushed it off, saying we didn't need them and that he'd given everything to his sister." "Does his sister actually need any of that?" Liberty snapped. "Both she and her husband work. They have stable incomes. My parents-in-law help take care of their kids, and their pensions are more than enough. Yet they still expect Hank to give them money every month. Isn't that basically Hank subsidizing his sister's entire family?" She shook her head, furious. "They don't even touch their own income. They just live off his parents' money and Hank's. If Hank were single and wanted to throw all his money at his sister, fine, that's his problem. But he has a family now. We still have a mortgage to pay. How does she have the nerve to use her brother's money to support her household?" Liberty couldn't understand how her husband could be so blind and irresponsible. What made it worse was that Liberty herself had been financially supporting her own parents' and sister's family for years. She sent money every month without complaint, yet Hank was unbelievably stingy toward her. The unfairness of it all crushed her. She had often cursed her in-laws in her heart for the act they put on before the marriage. Everyone had pretended to be decent, fooling her completely. Once she married Hank, got pregnant, and gave birth to Sonny, their true faces finally showed. "It's normal for a son to support his parents," Liberty said bitterly. "But why should he also support his sister's family? I'm not saying he shouldn't help at all, but it should be limited. He should be saving money for Sonny's education. Instead, he ignored everything I said and even suggested splitting expenses, acting like I was draining him dry." Looking back, Liberty deeply regretted quitting her job early to become a full-time housewife. When a woman has no income of her own and has to ask a man for every dollar, her dignity slowly erodes. Liberty understood that pain all too well. Thankfully, she still had Serenity to lean on, which eased some of her financial anxiety. Jasmine frowned and said in disbelief, "Most parents favor their sons. Why do Hank's parents expect their son to support their daughter instead? It would make sense if she were struggling, but she's not. She owns a house, drives a car, and has savings." Serenity, already familiar with her brother-in-law's family dynamics, took Sonny from Jasmine's arms and said calmly, "Liberty, you need to start looking for a job. Leave Sonny with me during the day. That way, if you ever decide to divorce, you'll have the confidence and ability to fight for what belongs to you." Sonny's custody was the real issue. If you don't have an income, how are you going to fight for him? Someone pointed out bluntly. Jasmine was stunned. But when she thought about Hank's greedy family, she felt that divorce was inevitable. No woman could endure a husband and in-laws like that forever. Liberty looked down at her son and replied quietly, "I'll hang on for a couple more months. After the new year, Sonny will start kindergarten. You can help by picking him up in the afternoons." She knew she had to find a job soon. Even if she couldn't return to a high-level position like before, her experience and skills would still land her something decent. Chapter 114. Serenity responded with a low hum. She bent down, kissed her nephew's cheek, and asked softly, "Are you excited to go to kindergarten?" No, at his age, Sonny only wanted to stay with his mother. Smiling gently, Serenity turned to Liberty. "Have you chosen a kindergarten yet? If you have, we can take Sonny there on weekends to play. Let him get familiar with the environment first. Once he feels comfortable, he won't resist going as much." Many kindergartens allowed parents to bring their children in on weekends to play and explore. Liberty nodded, then her expression darkened. "There's something else that's driving me insane. Hank's sister wants to move her 2 older kids to our city for school, and they'll be living with us. She expects me to handle school drop-offs, pickups, cooking, and tutoring. Does she think I'm a free nanny? Hank even offered me an extra $1,500 for food," Liberty scoffed. "He said that since I'm already raising 1 kid, adding 2 more wouldn't be a big deal. I'm willing to take care of my own child because I gave birth to him. No matter how exhausting it gets, I accept that. But why the hell should I raise someone else's kids?" He even suggested transferring the title of our house to his sister so her kids can enroll in a nearby school, Liberty said angrily. "I think he's completely lost his mind. Once the house is transferred, how does he plan to get it back?" Serenity and Jasmine were both speechless. They had seen stories like this online, but never imagined Liberty would become one of them. After taking another sip of water, Liberty continued honestly, "Seren, I told Hank that if he wants to transfer the house to his sister, then he has to pay for the renovation costs. If he doesn't, I won't let this slide. I spent $400,000 renovating that house," Liberty said with a heavy sigh. All the money she had saved through years of hard work went into that home and her small family. "If he refuses to reimburse me, then I'll divorce him," she said flatly. "At least that way, I can get my renovation money back. Seren, can you help me find a rental place? If Hank keeps this up, this marriage is finished." Liberty had finally seen through her husband's indifference and avoidance. She had never imagined she'd reach a point where divorce felt like the only option. But everything Hank and his family had done recently left her completely disillusioned. She began mentally preparing for life after divorce. Since Hank bought the house before they married, Liberty knew she wouldn't be entitled to it. But she was determined to reclaim every cent she spent on renovations. "I'm beyond disappointed in how he's handled all of this," she said, tears welling up. The Hunt sisters had struggled their whole lives to survive. Liberty deeply regretted marrying Hank. She realized she had been fooled by appearances and blinded by his surface charm. She thought she had married a good man. Instead, she married a scumbag. Chapter 115. Liberty said earnestly, "Not all men are like Hank. Jasmine, don't let my failed marriage scare you away from marriage. If you do, I'd carry that guilt for the rest of my life." She knew that Serenity's best friend was still single and under constant pressure from her family to get married. Jasmine smiled and replied, "I know there are bad people out there. When I do decide to marry, I want someone I genuinely like, someone I can trust with my life. Your experience won't affect my choices, Liberty. But it has taught me to be careful. I'll pay close attention to my future partner's family and character before committing." Jasmine's mother often reminded her that marriage wasn't just about the man, it also meant marrying into his family and social circle. There were too many factors to ignore. She glanced at Serenity with admiration. Liberty had clearly suffered a terrible marriage. Still, she couldn't rush into divorce because of Sonny. Before taking that step, Liberty needed financial independence and the ability to stand on equal footing with Hank. Serenity and Zachary, on the other hand, had married after just one meeting. They hadn't known each other beforehand. That kind of decision required immense courage. Jasmine knew she would never have the nerve to marry a stranger. At present, Zachary seemed far better than Hank. At the very least, whenever Serenity faced trouble, Zachary stood firmly by her side and never abandoned her. Still, the 6-month agreement he had signed with Serenity left Jasmine uneasy. She worried about her friend's future. Some things, Serenity chose not to share. She believed certain matters were better kept to herself. Suddenly, her phone rang. Serenity answered the call, glanced at the caller ID, then handed Sunny to Jasmine before walking aside. Her voice was firm and unwavering. "I won't let them bully me anymore. Whatever happens next, they brought it on themselves." On the other end, Zachary listened carefully. He admired her resolve. "That's right, Serenity. You should stand your ground. You deserve an apology, and they need to understand the consequences of their actions." "Thank you, Mr. York," she replied calmly. "I won't back down this time. They can't just keep pushing us around." A faint smile tugged at Zachary's lips. "Good. I'll support you no matter what you decide." "Really?" Serenity asked, warmth spreading through her chest. "Of course," he said firmly. "You're not facing this alone." After a brief pause, Serenity took a deep breath. "I appreciate it, Zachary. It truly means a lot." "Anytime," he replied. "Just remember, you have every right to protect yourself and your sister." With renewed determination, Serenity nodded even though he couldn't see her. "I will. Thank you for believing in me." "Always," Zachary said. "Now let's think about what to do next." "I'll keep you updated if anything else happens," Serenity promised. As they discussed their next steps, Serenity felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. With Zachary backing her up, she finally felt ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 116. Zachary hummed thoughtfully. "After this, they won't dare cause you any more trouble. The Hunts would have nothing left but regret." "Where do you usually eat lunch?" Serenity suddenly asked. "I usually eat outside," Zachary replied, then added, "Why? Are you inviting me?" Serenity smiled brightly. "Yes. You've helped me so much, and I'm really grateful. I want to treat you to a meal. But let's not go anywhere fancy, I'm a little worried about the cost." Zachary chuckled. Serenity wanted to thank him with food, yet she was afraid of overspending. Her sincerity was both genuine and unintentionally amusing. "I don't have much time during lunch, and nearby restaurants are always crowded," he said. "If you really want to treat me, why don't you get home early tonight and cook? Just don't make too much, we won't finish it." Zachary silently swore he would never pack food for Callum again. Why should he be the one delivering his wife's cooking to another man? Being cousins didn't give Callum the right to enjoy homemade meals. If Callum wanted that kind of treatment, he could go find a wife of his own. If Callum could read Zachary's thoughts, he'd probably laugh and say, "Aha, Zachary's jealous." What irony! Not long ago, Zachary had claimed he didn't understand jealousy and would never experience it. Had he finally tasted that emotion himself? Serenity smiled warmly. "All right. I'll go home early tonight, buy some ingredients, and cook a proper meal for you." "I appreciate it," Zachary replied. He didn't see it as a wife's obligation, it was a sincere gesture of gratitude. Knowing Serenity was willing to cook for him stirred something unfamiliar in his chest. Both of them were busy with work, neither having it easier than the other. Building a happy family, he realized, would require effort from both sides. Their call ended in less than 5 minutes. Zachary stared at his phone for a moment, set it down on his desk, and muttered, "What the hell am I doing? Am I possessed?" Calling Serenity during his break had been completely impulsive, uncharacteristic of him. Then his phone rang again. He picked it up immediately, half expecting Serenity. When he saw an unfamiliar number, a brief flash of disappointment crossed his face before he answered. "Zachary," came a cloying, overly sweet voice. His expression darkened. Without letting the caller finish, he ended the call and blocked the number. Elisa Stone. The nerve of that woman to get his number made his blood boil. Who the hell gave it to her? Clive? Unlikely. Clive had never supported Elisa's advances. Every time she lingered outside Zachary's office, Clive, or his wife, would personally escort her away. They had made their stance crystal clear. That only meant someone else had betrayed him. Zachary cursed the unknown snitch under his breath. Elisa's shameless confessions and relentless pursuit disgusted him. Nana often said that while he was devoted to family, he turned into a cold, inflexible blockhead when it came to romance. Without Nana constantly pushing him, Zachary suspected he might have stayed single for life. Chapter 117. Serenity tucked her phone into her pants pocket, preparing to head back into the store when she saw her sister Liberty stepping out. "Liberty, where are you headed?" she asked. "I'm going to grab some ingredients to cook for you girls." "Please don't order takeout for lunch, it's not healthy to rely on it too much," Liberty replied. "Seren, keep an eye on Sunny," she added. Serenity didn't try to stop her sister from leaving, instead, she reminded Liberty to be careful on the road. Today, Serenity had chosen to ride her e-bike to work instead of driving her new car. It was simply more convenient and faster, especially since she wanted to avoid the dreaded rush hour traffic. "Liberty, I'll send you some money," she called out. Serenity wanted to ensure that her sister wouldn't have to dip into the food budget provided by her husband, so she transferred some funds to Liberty. Liberty hopped onto her e-bike and headed to the market, confident she had enough money to buy groceries for her sister as well. After watching her sister ride away, Serenity went back inside the store. Sunny, having visited before, was familiar with Jasmine and remained calm. He didn't cry or fuss when his mother left. Instead, the little boy wandered around, exploring the books and pens within his reach. His curiosity was clearly piqued. "Did your husband call?" Jasmine teased, giving her a knowing wink. "He must really miss you to reach out during work hours." "He called to check if my money-hungry relatives had been in touch," Serenity replied with a chuckle. "Oh, that's just him showing he cares," Jasmine said. "Seren, have you thought about pursuing a real relationship with Mr. York?" "I do think he's a good man after spending so much time with him, but we'll see how things develop," Serenity said thoughtfully. Zachary still seemed to keep his distance, maintaining a wall around himself. Serenity didn't want to come on too strong, so she decided to take a more laid-back approach for now. She reflected on the light kiss they had shared that morning, surprised that neither of them took things further. She felt as though she had struck gold, realizing how innocent Zachary was in that regard. It was quite uncommon for a man his age to possess such innocence. It also indicated that Zachary was largely indifferent to romantic relationships. It was no wonder his grandmother had put so much effort into bringing them together. Without Nana's involvement, Zachary's temperament suggested he might still be single at 50. "Jasmine, what are some good gifts for men?" Serenity asked. "Are you planning to give your man a gift?" Jasmine replied, curious. "He's helped me so much, and I want to show my appreciation," Serenity explained. Jasmine's enthusiasm was palpable. "I've noticed my mother usually buys my father clothes, ties, watches, and shoes. He enjoys drinking, so sometimes she gifts him fine wine as well. I'm unsure about his size, and his wardrobe is entirely black. I suggested he try some color, but he immediately dismissed the idea. He looked glum, and his tone was icy when he told me not to worry about his clothing choices," Serenity admitted. Jasmine chuckled. "Your man seems tough and unyielding. Wearing a black suit only enhances that stern demeanor. I can tell he's climbed high on the corporate ladder, outpacing many of his peers. Just consider what he enjoys and choose a gift based on that," Jasmine advised. However, Serenity felt lost. The main issue was that she had no idea what his preferences were. "You could ask Grandma May for help," Jasmine suggested. Serenity thought it was a great idea and promptly called Grandma May for advice. Chapter 118. Nana learned that Serenity was curious about Zachary's interests, which gave her hope for their relationship. Excitedly, she shared details about her eldest grandson's likes, including some personal tidbits, such as his favorite color of underwear. Since Zachary's clothing was custom-tailored and delivered directly to their home, Grandma May was well aware of his underwear preferences. Saren, Zachary isn't particularly picky, so you don't need to overthink this. Just get him some clothes, and I can help with his size, she advised. But what if he doesn't like what I choose? Serenity worried. Nana chuckled. It's the thought that matters. It's up to him whether he wears them or not, but I believe he will. Despite his tendency to hide his emotions, Zachary often showcased the clothes his wife bought him, even if he initially pretended to dislike them. While Nana was no longer actively involved in the company, she still kept up with office happenings in her own ways. Recently, Zachary had been flaunting the perks of being married to Serenity, especially in discussions with Josh Butcham. Encouraged by Nana's words, Serenity decided to purchase 2 sets of clothing and a couple of ties for Zachary. However, upon checking her finances, she realized she couldn't indulge in Zachary's more extravagant tastes. Staying true to herself, Serenity believed in living within her means and wouldn't pretend to be wealthy. After finishing her work and lunch, Serenity hopped on her e-bike and headed to the mall to find clothes for Zachary. On her way, she also picked up Liberty and Sunny to take them home. Liberty, just a heads up, Hank might get into another argument with you when you return, she warned. Earlier, while they were busy at the store, Hank had called Liberty, questioning why she hadn't cooked for him. Serenity listened intently to Liberty's response. It was clear just how furious Hank must be, especially after having enjoyed Liberty's royal treatment for so many years. After a moment of silence, Liberty spoke up. Since I made this decision, I'm not afraid to confront him. Saren, if I ever decide to get a divorce and need your support, I hope you'll be there for me. But don't worry, I'll find my way back on my feet again, she added. Liberty knew she would need her sister's financial help. However, she intended to borrow the money and not simply accept it as a gift. Once independent, she planned to repay Serenity. Liberty, don't say that. Your troubles are my troubles. I'll be here for you no matter what. Zachary also mentioned that you can reach out to him if you need help. He just prefers to avoid dealing with Hank, Serenity reassured her. Zachary is a good man. You should appreciate him and nurture your little family. Don't make the same mistakes I did. My biggest regret is listening to Hank's nonsense and believing he would always support me. That's why I left my career to be a housewife. In the end, it was all a lie. Liberty exclaimed. I'll definitely cherish him, Serenity promised. Afterward, Serenity took Liberty home and insisted on escorting her upstairs. If Hank dared mistreat Liberty, Serenity was ready to stand up for her sister. A few minutes later, Liberty opened the door and walked inside with Serenity and her son, who had dozed off during the trip. Where have you been? Why did you take so long? I thought. Oh, Saren. You're here too. Hank grumbled, emerging from the kitchen wearing an apron and holding a spatula. His expression was dark and brooding. He had intended to scold his wife, but seeing his sister-in-law made him hold back. Hank, have you eaten lunch yet? Serenity inquired, her tone knowing. Hank shot a glare at Liberty, but she ignored him and picked up her son, taking him back to the room. Meanwhile, Hank vented his frustrations at his sister-in-law, Serenity. Look at your sister. All she does is take care of Sunny and neglect everything else at home. When I get back from work, I have to cook for myself. What's the point of having a wife? Serenity felt a surge of anger. It was clear that Hank had married her sister expecting her to act as his unpaid nanny. Chapter 119. Hank, are you really suggesting that we go Dutch when my sister doesn't even have a job? She's at home raising your child, and yet you think it's fair to split costs with her. What's the point of her being married to you? You often claim my sister does nothing around the house, so today she decided to live up to that expectation and do nothing. Oh, but wait, she still managed to do half the work. She bought the ingredients, measured out the pasta, and even prepared a pot of water for you. All you have to do is cook it yourself. Hank tried to respond, but Serenity cut him off. Hank, do you honestly believe your house takes care of itself every single day? Sonny is still very young, and when he plays with his toys, he leaves them scattered all over the floor. He can't clean up after himself. Do you think those toys magically put themselves away? And who do you think is responsible for your meals every day? Isn't my sister the one doing your dirty laundry as well? Didn't my sister prepare 3 meals a day for you? You only hold resentment toward her because she doesn't have a job or an income. If it weren't for her managing the household so well, would you even be able to focus on your work? This home belongs to both of you. My sister handles the household while you bring in the income. You can't say she doesn't contribute just because she isn't employed outside the home. In reality, my sister's responsibilities are far more challenging. Why don't you and my sister switch roles for a day? You could handle the laundry, cooking, taking care of the baby, and cleaning the house while she goes out to work. Before their marriage, Liberty's income had not been significantly lower than Hank's. Hank opened his mouth several times, but Serenity's arguments left him speechless. After a moment, he finally spoke up, albeit sheepishly. Serenity, You only spoke a single sentence, yet your response felt like a lengthy lecture, as if I had done something terrible to your sister. Aren't you busy managing your store? If business isn't going well and you're not making much profit, perhaps it would be better to close it down and find a job working for someone else. Isn't Zachary employed at a large company? You could ask him to help you get a position there. Earning a few $1,000s a month is surely better than struggling to keep your business afloat, came the suggestion. Serenity replied coolly, you really don't need to concern yourself with my finances. I earn enough to cover my expenses and have a little left over. I'm going to cook now, Hank stammered, sensing his sister-in-law's anger and opting not to engage further. He turned and retreated to the kitchen. Taking a moment to breathe deeply, Serenity knew she had to endure Hank for now since Liberty wasn't ready to file for divorce just yet. If he dared speak ill of her sister again, once Liberty found a job and prepared for their separation, Serenity would not hesitate to confront him. She entered Liberty's room and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, gently caressing Sonny. Serenity understood that Liberty was tolerating the situation primarily for the sake of her child. When Liberty noticed the door opening, she turned to see Serenity and stood up to approach her. Serenity, your brother-in-law won't heed your words. Please don't worry about me. I'll take care of myself until I decide to move on from him. Aren't you going to buy a gift for Zachary? You should head out now. I promise, I'm fine. Alright, I'll go shopping now. Just call me if you need anything. And if he ever lays a hand on you, I will not stand by and let anyone hurt my sister. Serenity asserted firmly. Liberty nodded in response. She had put up with so much in the past because of her love for Hank, but at this moment, her feelings had shifted to disappointment. She was enduring the situation for Sonny's sake, feeling powerless to change her circumstances at this time. Custody was a pressing concern for Serenity, but she felt a sense of relief knowing that Hank would no longer be able to threaten her once Liberty got back on her feet. With encouragement from Liberty, Serenity decided it was time to leave. As Serenity was about to walk out, Hank emerged from the kitchen, having just finished cooking a dish. He asked her in a casual tone, Serenity, have you eaten? Yeah, she replied nonchalantly before stepping out the door. Hank had only prepared one dish, as he hadn't cooked all the meals that Liberty had made. He took a forkful of his vegetables, tasted it, and immediately spat it out, clearly dissatisfied with his culinary attempt. Chapter 120. It tasted both unpleasant and sweet. But how could it be sweet? Had he accidentally used sugar instead of salt? Hank hurried to the kitchen, grabbing the seasoning box to check whether it contained sugar, salt, or monosodium glutamate. All of them were stored together, so it was possible he had confused sugar for salt earlier. Before marrying, Hank had his mother cook for him at home. After he got married, the Hunt sisters had taken over the kitchen duties. He had never needed to cook for himself, which explained why his dish turned out so poorly, he had mistaken sugar for salt. Next, he glanced at the pasta simmering in the pot. Since Liberty had measured everything for him, the pasta itself was likely fine to eat. Still, the spoiled Hank found it hard to swallow plain pasta without any seasoning or meat. Frustrated, he thought of all the effort he had put in during the first half of the day, only to return to find no food waiting for him. Angrily, he stormed into the room, and his irritation grew when he saw Liberty sitting on the bed, engrossed in her phone. In a sudden burst of rage, he lunged forward, knocked Liberty's phone from her hands, and grabbed her hair, dragging her to the floor. He began to unleash a flurry of punches and kicks at Liberty, careful not to yell and disturb their son, who was sound asleep. Liberty was caught off guard by Hank's unexpected assault and found herself pulled to the ground by her hair. Once she regained her composure, she fought back immediately. Though Hank had the advantage of being a man and had surprised her, Liberty refused to back down. Even as her face and nose became swollen and bruised from his blows, she remembered what a colleague had once told her: during the first fight in a relationship, a woman must win at all costs to show that she is not easily intimidated. That was the only way to contain a man. If a woman lost the initial confrontation, the man would inevitably become addicted to violence. When it comes to domestic abuse, there are either no incidents or an overwhelming number of them. Hank threw another punch at Liberty. Despite the pain she was experiencing, she clutched his fist tightly and bit down hard on his arm, causing Hank to cry out in agony. In retaliation, Hank used his other hand to yank at Liberty's hair, but the more he pulled, the tighter her grip became. "Liberty, let go. Let go of me. We both need to let go," Hank shouted, overwhelmed by the situation. He released the hand that was tugging at her hair and used it to shove Liberty away. As soon as he freed himself, Liberty lunged at him. Over the past 2 years of motherhood, Liberty had not focused on her physique and had gained about 30 to 40 pounds since their marriage. She pressed her full weight onto Hank, who felt as though he was being crushed by a heavy stone. This time, Liberty seized the advantage. Taking a deep breath, she slapped both sides of Hank's face with all her strength. Liberty fought back with the same intensity that Hank had shown earlier. She didn't stop until he was crying and blood trickled from the corners of his mouth. After catching her breath, Liberty turned and headed to the kitchen to retrieve a knife. By this time, Hank had managed to get back on his feet and called his parents and sister, claiming he had taught Liberty a lesson, but now she was striking back. When he saw Liberty charging at him with a knife, fear took over, and he quickly lost any desire to complain. Hank found himself being chased around the room, ultimately seizing a moment to dash outside. Chapter 121. Liberty pursued Hank with a kitchen knife. Hank was taken aback by Liberty's unexpected fierceness. Throughout their marriage, Liberty had always been gentle and considerate. Even recently, when he shouted at her, she only argued back on occasions when he crossed the line. This time, however, after he struck her, Liberty behaved like a madwoman. Not only did she retaliate, but she also grabbed a kitchen knife. Hank fled the room and exited the apartment. Liberty didn't relent, chasing after him with the knife in hand. She pursued Hank down the stairs. This scene astonished the entire neighborhood. Liberty chased Hank with the knife for 5 blocks. When she finally became exhausted, she sat down by the roadside to catch her breath. Hank, also fatigued, sat at a distance from her. When Hank's parents and sister arrived and saw them, Hank felt wronged. His parents were furious upon seeing their beloved son in such a pitiful state, with both sides of his face swollen. Chelsea rolled up her sleeves, fuming. "That B*TCH actually dared to hit my brother. I'll kill her." Mrs. Brown was so distressed that she burst into tears while scolding him. "Are you two enemies? How dare she hurt my son? I always knew she was unstable because she grew up undisciplined, without parents, and I told you not to marry her. But you insisted. You're a grown man, yet you can't even stand up to a woman. You keep telling us you'll teach her a lesson, but look at you now." Mrs. Brown conveniently forgot that their family had encouraged Liberty to marry Hank due to her high income at the time. Now, they looked down on Liberty. Mr. Brown also condemned her, saying, "I couldn't even bear to hit my son all this time. Liberty. You've really gone overboard this time. Where is she? I'll stand up for you and vow to retaliate. She lives in your house and spends your money, yet she dares to fight back when you try to teach her a lesson. Does she have a death wish? Mr. Brown noticed his daughter was already running toward Liberty and quickly followed her. Dad! Chelsea! She has a knife! Hank shouted, jumping up to chase after them with his mother. Liberty paused briefly and saw her in-laws charging toward her. She stood up, gripped the kitchen knife tightly, and glared at them with menacing intent. The Browns halted in their tracks as they caught sight of Liberty's fierce expression and the glint of the knife reflecting in the sunlight. They also realized that Liberty's condition was just as bad as Hank's. Her face was bruised and swollen, with blood on her nose and the corners of her mouth. Her hair was a mess, and her arms bore numerous bruises and shoe prints. It was clear to them that Hank was responsible for her injuries. Liberty, how dare you fight with Hank? Chelsea, too intimidated to approach, shouted at Liberty, Hank told us there was no food on the table when he returned from work. Is that how a wife should behave? You don't do anything at home and expect Hank to cook for himself. When has Hank ever cooked in his life? He only hit you a little because he was angry. You should just accept it. How dare you fight back? Exactly. Look at how badly you've beaten my son. You're a shrew. I'll make sure Hank divorces you. Just look at you now. How will you survive without him? You use Hank's money and live in his house, yet you still have the audacity to fight him. No woman should ever beat her husband like this. Chapter 122. Liberty scoffed. He insisted on splitting things evenly, so I simply followed his wishes. How is it fair that he can act however he pleases when he's upset? You feel distressed seeing him like this, but can't you recognize how he has hurt me too? He may be your cherished son, but I'm a human being. Yes, my parents are gone, but even as an orphan, I refuse to be mistreated. Are you planning to confront me one by one or all at once? Bring it on. I'll be honest with you, if you no longer want to be with me, just say so, and we'll get a divorce. You won't get away with abusing me. I'm not an easy target. If you dare to bully or hit me again, I'll ensure your entire family faces the consequences before I leave this world. Hank Brown, I warned you long ago that if you ever laid a hand on me, you better finish the job, because as long as I'm alive, you should sleep with one eye open. Otherwise, I'll ensure you regret it. Liberty glared fiercely at her in-laws. If they dared to come at her, she would fight to the death. The Browns were left speechless. What a shrew! She's completely unreasonable. Mr. Brown chastised Liberty, then turned to his son. Hank, come home with us. Hank was equally unnerved by Liberty's behavior today. Having known her for 12 years, he never realized she could be so ruthless. Shaken by the memory of her fierce expression, Hank left with his parents and sister, still trembling. He called his boss to request a leave of absence. He needed to recuperate at home. Chelsea drove over. Once the Browns were in the car, Chelsea said, Hank, you should divorce her and seek custody of Sonny. Don't give her custody. Let's see how she handles that. Hank wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked his parents, if I divorce her, will you help me take care of Sonny? Mom and Dad are already overwhelmed with my kids, Chelsea replied. After a brief pause, Mr. Brown said, Sonny is still young. Your mother and I are assisting Chelsea with her baby, and we need to pick up the 2 older kids from school. How can we manage Sonny? Hank, don't rush into the divorce. Don't give Liberty any financial support. If you cut off her money, she won't be so arrogant. You can wait to divorce her until Sonny is old enough for kindergarten. That way, we can handle the pickup and drop off, Chelsea suggested. Hank had a new girlfriend but had not filed for divorce because he understood his son was still young and his parents could not help him care for Sonny. After considering his father's advice, Hank retorted bitterly, she will never see a dime from me again. Mr. Brown cautioned him, if you don't want a divorce, don't hit her again. Liberty is tough. If you can't defeat her, just leave her alone and stop the abuse. Hank fell silent. He was intimidated by Liberty. Right. Stop giving her any more money. Also, since you bought the house and her name isn't on the title, you should kick her out. Chelsea advised her brother. Mrs. Brown added, now that Serenity is married and her husband owns a house, simply kicking Liberty out won't be enough to intimidate her. Hank, I previously advised you not to go too far for Sunny's sake. You need to be cautious moving forward. I've seen the mistress you're involved with. She doesn't work as hard as Liberty does, Mrs. Brown remarked. Hank looked at his mother in shock. Mom, how did you know? Mrs. Brown scoffed, you were so kind to Liberty before, but then you suddenly changed. I sensed something was amiss when you began mistreating Liberty. A few days ago, I spotted you dining with a young, attractive woman at a 5-star hotel. The closeness between you two made it clear to me what was happening. Chapter 123. Hank's family discovered his affair but chose not to reprimand him. Hank remarked, Liberty gained weight after giving birth to Sunny. She lost her figure, and I just can't stand her anymore. Jessica is considerate, young, and beautiful. I believe she's my true love. Mrs. Brown responded candidly, your mistress is only interested in your status and income. If you were just an ordinary employee like before, would she still care for you? Despite Liberty's harsh temper and the times she has hit you, she has taken good care of you during your marriage and managed the household well. She has endured hardships, which means she knows how to live within her means and run a family. That woman you're dating doesn't seem to compare to Liberty. Even though Mrs. Brown was biased toward her son, her assessment of Liberty was fair. You need a virtuous wife. Hank, I won't say anything if you want to fool around, but if you marry that girl, proceed with caution, you might regret it later. Most men who divorced their wives to marry their lovers did not end up happy. Mrs. Brown was pleased with her son's current situation, but she did not want him to lose his happiness and suffer the consequences. Chelsea interjected, what's so great about Liberty? Just look at how she attacked Hank. We can't accept such a woman as Hank's wife. Hank, I support you and Jessica. You won't know whether you can live happily with her until you marry her. How can anyone predict that? At first, Liberty was polite and charming. Who would have thought she would chase Hank down the street with a kitchen knife and beat him like this? Mr. and Mrs. Brown fell silent. Hank, you should avoid going home for the next few days, Chelsea said. Don't give her money, and don't apologize. She should be the one to apologize and acknowledge her wrongs. It was a mistake. You can return after she apologizes and promises not to do it again, Chelsea advised. Even if you don't get divorced now, you shouldn't concede defeat. If you do, your standing in the household will diminish. You're a strong man who should be in control. You can't allow a woman to bully you. Hank replied, I definitely won't go back for the next few days. Since Liberty wouldn't be cooking for him, it was better to stay at his parents' house to recover and enjoy good food for a few days before returning to work once he felt fully healed. Hank didn't plan to hide this from Jessica. He sent a message to his lover, telling her that he had been mistreated by his wife. When Jessica received the news, she comforted him, which made Hank feel even more drawn to her. Liberty felt relieved knowing that Hank wasn't returning home. At least she wouldn't have to seek refuge at Serenity's house. Upon arriving home, she noticed her son was still asleep, so she quickly applied a cold compress to her face and tidied herself up. She feared her son would be frightened if he saw her like this when he woke up. Hank had pulled out a significant amount of her hair, which was scattered across the floor. She cleaned it up with a broom. Fortunately, Liberty had thick hair. Although a lot had been yanked out, it wasn't noticeable once she combed and tied it up. Serenity was unaware of the abuse Liberty endured after she left, or the fact that such a violent fight had occurred. After leaving her sister's place, Serenity went to a pedestrian street to buy clothes and ties for Zachary. Grandma May had told Serenity Zachary's size, so she chose 2 sets of new black clothes, his favorite color, along with 2 new ties. After completing her purchases, she returned to the bookstore. During the evening rush hour, when students had just finished school, Zachary arrived around 6 o'clock. However, many students were attending extra classes, so the store wasn't busy. Understanding that Serenity needed some alone time with her husband, Jasmine smiled and said, "Serenity, go home with Mr. York. Don't keep him waiting here too long. I'll take care of closing up tonight." Chapter 124. Serenity said, "Thanks, Jazz." Jasmine smiled. "Don't mention it. You've always closed up at night before, so I've been taking advantage of you. I'll feel better once I make up for it." Serenity accepted her friend's offer, picked up the clothes she had bought, and bade Jasmine goodbye as she walked out of the bookstore. After opening the car door, she placed the bag on the passenger seat and told Zachary, "You can head home first. I need to stop by the market to buy some vegetables. If you can, please cook some pasta while you wait. Otherwise, just hold off until I get back." Zachary glanced at her e-bike and asked, "Where's your new car?" "I left the house later than usual today, and I was worried about getting stuck in traffic, so I decided to take the bike." Serenity put on her helmet and said, "I'm leaving now." Without waiting for Zachary's response, she rode off. Zachary was left speechless. Serenity often acted in haste, a stark contrast to Zachary's calm demeanor. Looking at the bag of clothes on the passenger seat, Zachary picked it up and rummaged through it. He noticed they were menswear and frowned. Who did she buy these for? After checking the sizes, he realized they all matched his and were black. Could they be for him? His displeasure faded after some thought. Zachary saw Jasmine exiting the store and greeted her with a nod before driving away. As soon as Zachary left, Sean arrived. Jasmine was startled to see her cousin and reached out to tug on his beard. "Sean, I haven't seen you in a while. Why have you grown such a long beard? You should shave it off. Don't grow a beard at such a young age, you'll look. Have you been very busy and tired lately? You look quite haggard. It's good to work hard, but don't overexert yourself. Remember, your body is a temple, you need to take care of your health." "I'm fine, just a little busy with work," he replied. Sean had actually grown his beard for Serenity's sake, though it wasn't very long. Jasmine was simply surprised because he usually kept a clean-shaven face. "Jazz, is Serenity not here?" Sean asked casually when he noticed she was alone in the store. Serenity went home early to prepare a feast for Mr. York as a thank you for all his help. "Are you looking for her? You can tell me what it's about, and I'll pass the message along." "It's nothing. I was just asking. Serenity mentioned she wanted to treat me to a meal, but I'm not sure when she'll follow through." Jasmine laughed. "You two are close friends, so even ordering takeout could count as treating you." Sean fell silent. He wanted to have a meal alone with Serenity. "Jazz, do you think Serenity and her husband, who married at first sight, will last?" Serenity was Sean's first crush. Although he was younger than her, he believed he could take good care of her. When he learned that Serenity had gotten married, he felt lost and struggled to let her go. Deep down, he hoped, and even looked forward to, the possibility of Serenity eventually getting a divorce. Mr. York can be cold, but he treats Serenity well. After living together for a while, they should develop some chemistry. If it doesn't work out, they'll probably divorce in 6 months since they signed an agreement. Chapter 125. Jasmine eyed her cousin suspiciously and asked, "Sean, why are you asking about this?" Unwilling to confess his feelings for Serenity or his hope for her divorce, Sean lied. "I just care about Serenity. I don't mean anything more. She's a wonderful girl. If her husband isn't treating her well, it's better for her to divorce sooner so she can find someone who truly appreciates her. That way, she can live a good life." "That's true. Serenity is amazing," Jasmine said. "I believe Mr. York will fall for her. He might even fall in love with her before she falls for him." Jasmine only wished the best for her friend. Sean felt a sharp pang in his heart. He couldn't reveal his crush on Serenity to his cousin, fearing she would tell his mother. Moreover, Sean was slightly younger than Serenity. Even if Serenity divorced, his mother would never accept her as a daughter-in-law. Until he felt confident enough to pursue her, He carefully hid his feelings from everyone. The sun sank into the western horizon, and the sky gradually darkened as night fell. Meanwhile, in Brinfield, Serenity was busy in the kitchen. The rich aroma of food drifted through the air, drawing Zachary to the kitchen doorway. He wanted to help, but Serenity insisted on doing everything herself since she was treating him to dinner and refused his offer. Feeling bored after watching TV in the living room, he decided to stand nearby and watch her cook. Zachary observed Serenity's graceful movements with a gentle, focused gaze. Although he hadn't consciously noticed the changes in himself, he found that Serenity had many admirable qualities. "Serenity," Zachary suddenly called out as a thought crossed his mind. She turned her head slightly while continuing to cook. "Speak your mind, Mr. York. You've taken great care of the potted plants on the balcony. Could you spare one for my office desk?" Serenity replied casually, "That pot is quite large. If you put it in your office, don't place it on your desk, it'll take up too much space. Just find a spot in the office and set it there." "But I want it on my desk," Zachary insisted. "I heard from my colleagues that the plant symbolizes fortune, so I thought it might help bring me good luck." "In that case, you might as well buy a lucky cat and put it on your desk," Serenity shot back. As she scooped the stir-fried vegetables onto a plate, she added, "If you really want something for your desk, I can give you a miniature tree craft. It's small, doesn't take up much space, looks nice, and has symbolic meaning." Zachary had deliberately spoken in a roundabout way because he wanted one of Serenity's handmade crafts. Serenity unknowingly fell into his trap, and he went along with it. "Do you have any available? Your crafts are so detailed that Nana loves them and displays them all over the house. Whenever someone asks about them, she praises you endlessly." Nana admired Serenity so much that she had approved of her becoming Zachary's wife. "I have some crafts on hand, but they're all customer orders. Since we live together, I won't rush to give one to you. I can give you a miniature tree tomorrow. Would you like a lucky cat as well?" Zachary didn't mind, as long as Serenity was willing to give him something she made herself. He had no intention of taking from her customers. "Can you make a lucky cat?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. Zachary smiled. "Then I'll be greedy this time and ask for a lucky cat too." Zachary didn't own a lucky cat, which meant he now had one more item than Callum. "If your colleagues like them, please share the link to my online store and support my business." After a brief pause, Zachary replied, "Many of my colleagues already know about your online store. Callum recommended it to them." Callum had seized the chance and taken control of the situation. Chapter 126. Zachary felt disappointed at first. However, after thinking it through, he realized that Callum promoting Serenity's handicrafts would only increase her income. Since Serenity was his wife, he would benefit as well. With that thought, his gloom quickly faded. Once Serenity finished cooking, she carried the dishes to the table. The couple sat down and ate together. Zachary was in high spirits and ate heartily. He had to admit that Serenity was an excellent cook, and he felt lucky to have her. After dinner, Serenity washed the dishes, then picked up the bag of clothes from the couch. She took out the clothes and handed them to Zachary. "Mr. York, please try on these 2 outfits and see if they fit. You've helped me so much that I don't think treating you to dinner is enough. That's why I bought you 2 new outfits and matching ties. They're all black, your favorite color." Zachary had already guessed they were for him but kept quiet. Taking the clothes, he looked at her and asked, "How did you know my size?" "I asked Nana." Zachary said nothing. "Do you want to try them on?" "No. They'll fit." Serenity had chosen his favorite color. "If you're unsure what to buy next time, just ask me." Zachary thought to himself, "Don't involve Nana. If she finds out, who knows what schemes she'll come up with behind my back." "You're busy with work, so I didn't want to bother you," Serenity explained. Zachary was left speechless. He really was busy and didn't like being disturbed over small matters. "Mr. York, it's still early. Let's go for a walk. By the way, I haven't really explored the neighborhood since moving here," Serenity added. Zachary paused before agreeing. He wasn't familiar with Brinfield either. In fact, it was his housekeeper who had handled the purchase of this unit. That evening marked the couple's first walk together. Zachary was naturally reserved and spoke little. Unlike couples who married for love, their relationship was different. As they walked down the stairs and headed out, silence gradually settled between them. After a long while, Serenity broke the silence. "Mr. York, how far is your hometown from the city?" She had never visited his hometown and had only heard from Grandma May that it was in the suburbs. Since signing the agreement, Serenity had already prepared herself for a possible divorce at any time, which made her less interested in visiting his hometown. The awkward silence lingered, so she brought up the topic to fill the void. "With smooth traffic, it takes less than an hour by car," Zachary replied. "It's not far, but it's not exactly close either." The York family owned several villas in upscale areas around the city and only returned to their main residence occasionally. "Nana said your family also owns farmland that produces a lot of crops," Serenity said. "Yeah," Zachary responded with a low hum. Serenity didn't continue the topic. She knew Grandma May wouldn't lie. The Yorks were simply ordinary farmers, and Serenity understood that she hadn't married up the social ladder. She and Zachary were from the same social class. Chapter 127. Many people were taking leisurely strolls around the neighborhood. Most were parents walking with their children, while others were young couples strolling hand in hand. Despite seeing the affection displayed by other couples, Serenity and Zachary walked side by side, neither of them making any attempt to hold the other's hand. Even so, they still attracted the attention of several passers-by, as they made a striking couple. Eventually, Serenity stopped near a children's playground and said to the man beside her, "Let's sit here and watch the kids play." Serenity had always liked children. She adored her nephew, Sonny. Zachary remained silent as he followed her to a stone bench, where they sat down together. "If Sonny were here, he'd definitely be having a great time," she remarked. Zachary merely hummed in response. Serenity tilted her head to look at him, and Zachary felt uncomfortable under her gaze. Chapter 128. Zachary was once again at a loss for words. He wasn't sure what he should talk about with her. The young couples around them were newlyweds, clinging to each other and holding hands, while those with children were focused entirely on their kids, giving them endless topics to discuss. In contrast, Zachary and Serenity had neither romantic feelings nor children. It made conversation especially difficult. Noticing his silence, Serenity smiled and stood up, gently pulling him to his feet. "Let's head back before you start worrying that I might pounce on you at any moment." "Serenity, you're a girl." "And what if I am? I'm just saying." As she led him away, she held onto his sleeve instead of his hand, afraid he might go home and wash his hands 100 times. "Did you see the trending story from 2 days ago? It was about Miss Stone and Mr. York. Miss Stone really likes him, so she confessed her feelings and pursued him openly. Men pursue the women they like, and women do the same. Everyone is just looking for true love. I admire Miss Stone's courage. Even though she doesn't know me, I'll silently wish her luck in her pursuit of love. I hope she succeeds and marries Mr. York. She's chasing him quite aggressively now, and once they're together, I'm sure Mr. York will pamper her endlessly." Unbeknownst to Serenity, Elisa had deliberately downplayed the ungrateful granddaughter trending story, minimizing its impact on Serenity and Liberty. As a result, Serenity had a favorable impression of Elisa. Elisa's bold personality only deepened Serenity's admiration for her. When Zachary heard his wife's words, he nearly rolled his eyes. "If you only knew that Mr. York is me. Your husband," Zachary clarified. "Mr. York isn't fond of Miss Stone." He explained himself to prevent Serenity from trying to matchmake him with Elisa. Aside from love at first sight, most people don't fall in love with their partner immediately. Feelings develop through mutual pursuit and understanding. Love needs time to grow. Mr. York and Miss Stone might seem compatible since they come from the same social class. If they really got together, it would look like a perfect match. I work at York Corporation, and I know our boss always has bodyguards around him and avoids young women. He isn't interested in them. Besides, York Corporation and the Stone Group aren't exactly on good terms. How could he possibly be with Miss Stone? After marrying Zachary, Serenity had never asked about his position or salary. They were married in name only and might not last long, so she saw no reason to dig into such details. However, if Zachary mentioned his job, Serenity was more than willing to share her opinions. "Have you met your boss?" she asked with a smile. "Since you share the same surname, people might mistake you for his relative. Jasmine has suspected several times that you're related to that Mr. York, but I told her she reads too many novels and confuses fiction with reality. In stories, the female lead always marries a billionaire at first sight. If it were that easy, every man would be a billionaire." Zachary thought to himself, Miss Sox does have a sharp eye. The Sox family was wealthy. To ordinary people, they were local tycoons, earning hundreds of thousands each month just from rent. It was precisely this financial background that allowed Aunt Rachel to marry into a rich family. Zachary silently reminded himself to avoid the Soxes and the Lows at future banquets. He didn't want them exposing his identity to Serenity. As the head of the York family, the wealthiest family in Wiltspoon, he wanted to reveal the truth to Serenity himself, not through others. "Our boss is extremely busy," Zachary said. "It's hard for me to meet him unless it's for official business. I'm not part of senior management. Even if I attended a meeting, I'd be sitting at the very end of the table. Besides, my eyesight isn't great, so I wouldn't be able to see his face clearly." Serenity suddenly asked defensively, "Why are you looking at me like that?" "You look incredibly handsome, so I wanted to admire you for a moment," she replied. Zachary was speechless. "Mr. York, you're good-looking and capable. That means you have excellent genes. If you have children in the future, they'll definitely be smart. Are you implying you want to have children with me?" Serenity laughed. "Nana keeps urging me to just go for it so she can have a great-granddaughter." Hearing this, Zachary subtly shifted away from her. Unaware of his movement, Serenity continued, "I know you don't have feelings for me, and I don't have feelings for you either. We're just a couple without any emotional foundation. Even if I tried to pursue something physical, it wouldn't feel right without feelings involved. It would be more like hiring a gigolo. The only thing missing would be paying you for your services." Zachary was completely speechless. "We won't have children. Let Nana pressure Callum and the others instead," Serenity added. Would they really not have children? Zachary wondered. He felt uneasy after hearing Serenity's thoughts on children, but he didn't argue and merely pursed his lips. "Mr. York, do you think I'm a scheming woman? Could you be any more blunt?" Zachary thought sarcastically, but he kept silent. "Actually, I did have a motive for marrying you," Serenity admitted. "It's because you own a house. By marrying you, I could move in and live rent-free, which helps me save money." "I know." That was precisely why his first impression of her hadn't been good. He had married her reluctantly at Nana's insistence. "You knew?" Serenity tilted her head, looking at him admiringly. "You're really sharp, Mr. York. Your eyes are so perceptive it feels like you can read my mind." Zachary met her gaze calmly. "I can't read minds, so I don't understand why you're suddenly saying all this." "There's no special reason," she replied. "I just realized we barely talk. You never start conversations, so I have to come up with topics to ease the awkwardness." Chapter 129. You're a manager in the company, yet you hardly ever get the chance to meet your boss. He truly seems unattainable and mysterious, Serenity remarked. There were no photos of Mr. York available online. He was always accompanied by a security detail. At the last dinner party, there were so many tall, muscular bodyguards surrounding him that Serenity and Jasmine couldn't even catch a glimpse of his face, despite tiptoeing and trying. Now, realizing that Zachary, a white-collar employee at York Corporation, also rarely saw Mr. York, Serenity felt much better about her own situation. Zachary did not continue the conversation. He was indifferent to what others thought of him and always acted according to his own desires. The couple discussed Mr. York briefly before heading back to their block. Zachary's bodyguards roamed nearby. Although they did not follow closely, they always kept the couple within sight, ensuring Serenity and Zachary were never out of view. Unbeknownst to Serenity, she had been watched the entire time. As she turned her head, she inadvertently spotted a bodyguard lingering nearby. He looked familiar, so she paused and said to Zachary, "That man seems very familiar." Zachary was taken aback. That was his bodyguard, Jim. Jim was also surprised to be noticed. He quickly composed himself and approached them as if nothing had happened. This familiar man was the driver who had taken Zachary home when he was drunk that evening. "Yes, that's me," Jim confirmed. Serenity had a keen eye and a strong memory. "Do you also live around? Are you here?" "Yeah, but I'm renting the place. Normally, I drive for a ride-hailing service, and occasionally I take hire when someone's been drinking." "Oh, okay." Although Serenity recognized the driver, she wasn't well acquainted with him and only greeted him because of their previous encounter. She didn't dwell on it. Zachary glanced at Jim. Immediately, Jim understood the silent message conveyed by his boss's look. From now on, Jim would need to be extremely cautious while following Zachary in public. Being seen by Serenity could reveal his identity, which would carry serious consequences. Once home, Serenity habitually sat on the swing while Zachary returned to his room. They did not speak again that night. The following day, Zachary was about to leave when Serenity finished making breakfast. "Mr. York, you haven't had breakfast yet." Zachary adjusted his tie, and Serenity noticed it was the one she had gifted him. She had thought he wouldn't like it or wear it, so seeing him in it surprised her. "I have an early meeting and can't be late. I'm worried about traffic, so I need to leave early. I won't have breakfast at home and will order takeout later." "I've already made breakfast. Don't order takeout. I'll pack it for you so you can take it to the office." Zachary hesitated. It was hard to decline, especially since her breakfasts were always delicious. Serenity brought out an insulated lunchbox, filling it with sandwiches, a hard-boiled egg, and some salad. She closed it and handed it to Zachary. "Eat it when you get to the office. Don't work on an empty stomach." "Okay." Chapter 130. Zachary finally began to appreciate the advantages of being married. He left for work with the insulated lunchbox, savoring the breakfast his wife had lovingly prepared during the car ride to the office. He ate it wholeheartedly and felt content. The driver and bodyguard in the car were slightly bemused. Serenity's breakfast was simple, yet the usually picky Zachary relished every bite. Perhaps Serenity's cooking skills were exceptional. After Zachary departed, Serenity routinely called her sister and left the house, reassured that her sister was doing well. Upon exiting, she encountered rush-hour traffic, which became increasingly congested halfway through her journey. Many commuters were nearly at their breaking point. Elisa Stone was among them. While her brother and sister-in-law enjoyed a loving breakfast together, Elisa quietly slipped out of her house. She had secretly prepared breakfast for Zachary, having her chef cook it, then cut a large bunch of fresh flowers from her garden and wrapped them up. Carrying the bouquet and the prepared breakfast, Elisa set off for York Corporation. She aimed to arrive before Zachary entered the building, so she could flag him down in the traditional way and hand him the breakfast. Despite everyone, including her sister-in-law, urging her to forget Zachary, Elisa was determined. If she could have forgotten him, she would have done so long ago. Yet after all this time, she couldn't let him go and wanted one last chance. She would only give up if she failed to win his heart after 3 to 5 years. Traffic had come to a standstill. As the minutes passed, Elisa's anxiety grew. If she remained stuck, Zachary would have already started work by the time she reached York Corporation, rendering her efforts meaningless. No, she couldn't wait any longer. She called her bodyguard to inform him of the location of her car parked on the roadside and asked him to retrieve the spare key from home to drive it back. After hanging up, the traffic finally began to move. Seizing the moment, Elisa maneuvered her car to the side of the road and parked in front of a store. She snapped a quick photo and sent it to her bodyguard, then grabbed the bouquet and lunchbox and stepped onto the roadside to flag down a bike. Fortunately, she managed to stop Serenity, who was passing by. Serenity braked and looked at Elisa with a friendly smile. "Hey, pretty lady, what's going on?" Elisa studied Serenity, sensing a strange familiarity, though a second glance revealed a stranger. Bold enough to pursue Zachary openly, she felt no guilt or fear in hailing a stranger's bike. "Can you give me a ride?" "The traffic is terrible today, and I'm in a hurry," she asked straightforwardly. Noticing the bouquet and insulated lunch box in Elisa's hands, Serenity smiled, guessing her destination. "Where are you headed?" "To York Corporation." "Hop on, I'll take you there," Serenity replied. York Corporation was her husband's workplace. Serenity was eager to see the impressive 68-story office building up close. It was the heart of the Wiltspoon business district. "Thank you," Elisa exclaimed, grateful for Serenity's willingness to give her a ride. There was a sense of familiarity between them, as if they had known each other for decades, though they were actually strangers. This was the first time Elisa had felt such a connection to someone she had just met. Serenity retrieved a spare helmet from the trunk and handed it to Elisa. "Put this on to avoid any trouble with the traffic police." Elisa accepted the helmet and donned it. Serenity restarted her e-bike and, with Elisa following closely behind, navigated the non-motorized vehicle lane toward York Corporation. Chapter 131. Serenity navigated through the traffic congestion effortlessly on her electric bike. After more than 10 minutes, she arrived at York Corporation. She halted the bike and turned to Elisa. "We've arrived, Mississippi." Elisa returned the helmet to Serenity and expressed her gratitude. "It's just a small favor." "No need to thank me," Serenity replied. Elisa looked at her curiously. "May I know your name? You look really familiar. Have we met before?" "My last name is Hunt." "I find you quite likable as well, Mississippi." "Unfortunately, we've never met before," Serenity responded. While beautiful women often left an impression on her, Serenity couldn't recall this particular lady. "Your last name is Hunt." "Oh, now I remember. There was a viral news story about an unfilial granddaughter, also named Hunt, which included a photo. I think you resemble one of the little girls in that picture." "Was that you?" The unfilial granddaughter news had made a lasting impression on Elisa, and she vividly recalled the childhood photo of Serenity and her sister that the Hunt family had released. At the time, she had criticized the trending news for distracting netizens and had also reprimanded the Hunt sisters for their alleged unfilial behavior. However, when the truth came to light, she ended up condemning the Hunt family instead. Her mother had scolded her for lacking patience and critical thinking skills, despite being in her 20s. Elisa had simply followed the crowd in criticizing the Hunt sisters based on a one-sided narrative. While she was admonishing the Hunt sisters at home, her mother became curious about the story and wanted to read more. Unfortunately, after the truth emerged, the Hunt family faced a backlash from netizens and quickly deleted all their posts. It was clear that the family had their own connections. The eldest son of a relative of the Hunts was a manager at a company within the Stone Group. After the situation took a drastic turn, many outraged netizens targeted the Hunt family and uncovered John's identity. They even left comments on the Stone Group's official page, urging headquarters to terminate John's employment. Serenity was surprised to be recognized from an old childhood photo. Realizing she now held the advantage, she smiled and acknowledged it. "You have both a keen eye and a good memory, Mississippi. I couldn't possibly forget you. The viral news about you captured the attention of countless netizens. Even though the circumstances have changed, it's still trending on many news sites," Elisa replied. Serenity's eyes brightened at Elisa's words, and she cautiously inquired, "Miss, are you the daughter of the Stone family?" Elisa complimented her. "You're very astute. You figured it out right away." Serenity chuckled. "What a coincidence. I owe you my gratitude for stepping in and managing the trending search. Thanks to you, my sister and I didn't face much backlash. You're here to deliver breakfast to Mr. York, aren't you?" "Exactly." The two connected well, and for the first time, Elisa engaged in a pleasant conversation with someone she had just met. Then you should hurry inside, Miss Stone. It's already 8, and Mr. York will be hungry if you don't bring the food. Elisa glanced at the time. He likely hasn't arrived yet due to the traffic. I was trying to get to the company before him, so I'm lucky you gave me a ride. No problem. You helped me with that incident, so I'm truly grateful. Serenity marveled at how fate intertwined their lives. Despite coming from entirely different worlds, they found themselves connected. Elisa smiled. You don't need to thank me, I did it for myself. At that moment, Zachary's motorcade appeared in the distance. Elisa recognized her beloved's car instantly. As soon as she spotted the convoy of luxury vehicles approaching, she paused her conversation with Serenity. She quickly retrieved her business card and handed it to her. Miss Hunt, since you helped me today, feel free to call me if you need anything in the future. I'll do my best to assist you. Chapter 132. Elisa didn't want to be indebted to Serenity, but she also sensed a potential connection with her. Therefore, she handed her the business card. Serenity noticed the line of luxury cars and said understandingly, "You should be on your way, Miss Stone. I wish you all the best." "Thank you." Elisa embraced the bouquet and carried the insulated lunchbox. Instead of rushing toward the luxury cars, she walked directly to the building's entrance and positioned herself at the gate. Serenity was taken aback. Miss Stone was truly impressive. Zachary was late getting to the office. Although he had left early that day, he needed to stop by the villa to collect something. After leaving the villa, his car had quickly become stuck in traffic. Regardless of the vehicle or its occupants, everyone faced the same morning congestion, no one could evade it. The bodyguard in the passenger seat happened to be Jim, who had keen eyesight. He spotted Serenity immediately and turned to Zachary. "Mr. Zachary, the Mrs. and Miss Stone are together." Zachary frowned, puzzled about how they ended up together, considering they hadn't even met before. He looked ahead. While he couldn't recognize Elisa, he did recognize Serenity. After all, they had lived in the same house for a time and had even shared a kiss. He would have to be blind to not recognize her. "Just ignore them," he said quietly, leaning back in his seat. The distance between them was closing rapidly. Jim, concerned about being recognized by Serenity, deliberately looked away so she wouldn't see his face. The motorcade did not stop in front of Serenity. She watched as the convoy rolled past her. She sighed inwardly as she noticed the Rolls-Royce, which seemed oddly familiar, reminiscent of one she had seen multiple times in her neighborhood. However, upon recalling Mr. York's identity, she quickly dismissed the possibility that it was the same vehicle. As the motorcade came to a stop in front of the fearless Elisa, she couldn't help but smile to herself. It was often said that women feared being pursued by men, but the reverse could also be true. Elisa is bold and fearless. I believe she will soon win over Mr. York, Serenity thought. She made a cheering gesture toward Elisa before taking a detour on her e-bike and leaving. Meanwhile, in the car, Zachary averted his gaze, not wanting his wife to see his expression. When the car passed Serenity, he glanced over to find her pumping her fist in support of Elisa. He had to force himself to calm down, suppressing the urge to react violently. It made sense now why he hadn't noticed Elisa's car. She must have arrived at the gate before him because Serenity had given her a ride on her e-bike. But how had they met? Judging by Serenity's enthusiastic gesture, it was clear she knew Elisa's identity. Yet, it seemed improbable that they were acquainted. Elisa had grown up in luxury and was adored by her family, often ignoring other daughters of the Stone family. How could she have formed a friendship with Serenity? Zachary was perplexed. Chapter 133. Elisa stood in front of the building, forcing the driver to stop the car. "Mr. Zachary, should I get out and move Miss Stone?" the driver asked, looking for Zachary's guidance. After a brief pause, Zachary rolled down the car window. When Elisa saw the window come down, she beamed with joy and hurried over, holding a bouquet of flowers and an insulated lunchbox. Zachary! She was finally face to face with the man she had been longing for. Despite her frequent visits to declare her love, it had been a long time since they had seen each other in person. She had missed him dearly. He maintained his usual cold demeanor, yet he remained the most handsome man in her eyes. Her gaze drifted to his tightly pressed lips, and she felt an overwhelming desire to steal a kiss or two. She was curious about how soft his lips would feel. Elisa looked at Zachary with a predatory intensity, which caused him to frown. "Ms. Stone." "Zachary, please just call me Elisa." With a bright smile, Elisa handed the insulated lunchbox through the car window and said, "I brought you breakfast. Enjoy it while it's hot. This bouquet is for you too." Zachary did not take the lunchbox or the bouquet. Being a man, he was not fond of flowers. "The traffic was heavy today. How did you manage to arrive so early?" He was simply curious about how Elisa had connected with Serenity. In response, Elisa eagerly explained, "I'm quite resourceful. I parked in front of a store and had my bodyguard come to drive it back. Then, I flagged down someone on an electric bike and made my way here without any issues. So that was the story behind their meeting." "Zachary, it's truly remarkable." I raised my hand to stop a random person, only to discover that she was Serenity Hunt, the unfilial granddaughter, who recently went viral in the news. Surprisingly, she was quite nice, and we connected well. Zachary thought to himself, Elisa is the most notoriously unruly and contemptuous lady in Wiltspoon, yet she managed to get along with Serenity. However, considering Serenity's character, he found it understandable that Elisa would like her and want to befriend her. "Drive!" Zachary commanded the driver in a deep voice, satisfied that his question had been answered. "Zachary, keep the flowers. And remember to eat breakfast. I rushed over just to give this to you. I made it with love for." The car sped away, leaving Elisa behind. She was only able to toss the bouquet of flowers into the car, knowing that throwing in the lunchbox would spill food everywhere and surely anger Zachary. It was a pleasant surprise that Zachary spoke to her today, so she didn't want to upset him. Unfortunately, the bouquet she threw into the car was soon discarded outside, landing pitifully on the ground. Elisa tried to chase after the car but couldn't keep up and had no choice but to give up. She didn't dare enter York Corporation directly, fearing that Zachary would order security to remove her and toss her out onto the street, which would be humiliating. As Zachary entered the office building, he encountered his administrative executive, Josh. Josh noticed that Zachary's hands were empty today and leaned in to tease him in a whisper, "Why did the married man forget to bring his lovingly made breakfast to the office today?" Chapter 134. I ate in the car. Josh was left speechless. "By the way, I saw something interesting earlier. Would you like to hear about it?" Zachary shot him a glance and walked ahead. His handsome face was devoid of expression, and his lips were pressed into a thin line as he remained silent. Josh disliked that attitude, but he couldn't help but chatter on. "I arrived early and happened to see your wife drop Miss Stone off here, so I paused to figure out what was happening. Before your car pulled up at the company, your wife and Miss Stone were chatting quite amiably. Boss, it seems your wife and admirer are getting along and are ready to become good friends. What do you think about that?" Zachary didn't bother to respond, simply stepping into the elevator and leaving the talkative administrative executive behind. Josh wasn't angry, instead, he chuckled to himself. This will definitely be the drama of the year. He was genuinely curious about how Serenity Hunt would react if his boss's identity were ever revealed. Recalling how Elisa had rushed over to bring him flowers and breakfast again, Zachary called Clive and said coldly, "Mr. Stone, please manage your sister. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." His patience had its limits. Clive sighed. "Mr. York, Elisa hasn't done anything inappropriate. She simply likes you and is trying to pursue you. I've advised her countless times, but what do you expect me to do? Break her legs?" He truly felt powerless regarding his sister's behavior. Even if he hired someone to keep an eye on her, she would inevitably find a way to evade them. "Zachary, you and I are about the same age. I've been married for several years, yet you only have one suitor. Since my sister is the first to pursue you, just be patient with her." Zachary hung up immediately. He understood Elisa's character well. No matter how he treated her, whether ignoring her or being rude, she would always bounce back. Unless she was physically incapacitated, even tarnishing her reputation wouldn't deter her. After the call, Clive's expression darkened, and he couldn't resist calling his sister to lecture her once more. Meanwhile, Elisa was already en route home in a taxi. "Clive, I'm on my way home. I didn't do anything outrageous today. My IQ is limited, so I can't think of anything extraordinary," she said. "If you put as much effort into spending time with Mom as you do chasing Zachary, she would be much happier," Clive replied. "I do spend time with Mom, but she suffers from a mental illness that requires emotional support. It's true I'm her favorite, but I can't be her cure," Elisa explained. Audrey's wish was to reunite with her sister, who had been separated from her for decades. Her sister had been placed in various families within the system, and Audrey had lost track of her whereabouts. All she wanted was to reconnect with her sister in this lifetime. "By the way, I need your help with something," Elisa said to Clive. "What is it?" he asked, willing to assist as long as it didn't involve helping her pursue Zachary. "I met a girl earlier, Serenity Hunt. She made a great impression on me, and we really clicked. It's about that online incident I mentioned before. Serenity's relatives went too far. Can you dismiss that Hunt guy? I don't want him to affect our company's reputation," she requested. Clive responded nonchalantly, "There's no need for me to personally handle something trivial like this." "Has someone already gotten to him?" Elisa inquired. "I didn't do anything. He was probably already. He was suspended from his duties. His subordinates would take care of the situation. John was merely working at a branch office." Despite his capabilities, the incident escalated and exposed his true character. Clive had no interest in someone like him. Chapter 135. That's right. It would be best if they all lost their jobs and faced the wrath of everyone. They should experience what online harassment feels like. Their behavior is utterly inhumane. Despite Elisa's somewhat rebellious nature, she still possessed a sense of virtue. Moreover, her fondness for Serenity motivated her desire to seek justice on Serenity's behalf. It was her way of repaying a kindness. After all, it was Serenity who referred me to York Corporation, allowing me to meet Zachary today. He even spoke to me. "Clive, I'm heading home to spend time with Mom. You should get back to work," Elisa said before hanging up the phone. She didn't want to take up more of her brother's valuable time. The Old Stone residence was not far from the Old York residence, but they were on different routes. If they had been on the same route, Elisa would have intercepted Zachary's car on his way home. However, Zachary rarely returned to the Old York residence, making it unlikely for her to block his path even if they were traveling the same way. As the second most influential family in Wiltspoon, the Old Stone residence was beautifully restored and expansive. The York residence was designed like a manor, and the Stone family followed suit in building their home similarly. Inside a grand hall, a middle-aged woman sat on the sofa, holding a photograph in her hands. She gazed blankly at the image for an extended period. Elisa entered the room and took the photograph from her mother's grasp as she approached. "Mom, you shouldn't stare at this photo all day. If Aunt were alive, we would definitely find her. Please try to stay positive. Don't be so downcast and worried all the time." Daryl brought over a glass of water and chimed in, "Elisa is right, dear. You shouldn't keep fixating on the photo. We have arranged for many people to search for your sister. I believe we will receive news about her soon," he said as he handed the glass to his wife. In their youth, the couple had been busy with work, leaving little time for each other. After Clive took over, Daryl retired and looked forward to spending quality time with his wife, hoping to enjoy their old age peacefully. However, he did not expect his wife to be so frequently depressed lately over a sister-in-law he had never met. Daryl was anxious about Audrey's distress, but he felt powerless to help. The two sisters had been separated for a long time, and it was possible that his sister-in-law had forgotten she even had a sister. She had been passed from one family to another, leaving no one aware of her current whereabouts. The other half of the photo might not even be in her possession anymore. Finding someone with just a photograph was a daunting task. Audrey accepted the glass of water her husband offered, took a sip, and then took the photo from her daughter's hand. She set the glass down, carefully returned the photo to its album, and closed it with a sigh. Lately, I've been having nightmares of my sister being beaten and scolded. She must have had a miserable life. That's because you keep thinking about it all day, Elisa said, sitting down beside her mother and affectionately holding her arm. Mom, it's still hot outside. I want to go to the beach for a vacation, and you should come with me. Let's go fishing and enjoy some fresh seafood, Elisa suggested sweetly. So you don't have to block Zachary's path every day? Audrey teased, nudging her daughter's nose playfully. I thought you'd be willing to sacrifice food and sleep just to stand guard at the York Corporation gates every day. The pursuit of true love can't be accomplished in a day or two. I also need to be supportive of my mother. Come on, Mom. Join me for a beach holiday, okay? Daryl added, you should go out and take a break, honey. Don't stay cooped up at home with that photo all the time. Since Audrey could afford it, she had continuously searched for her only sister. However, decades went by without any leads. Even though her son took over the search, Daryl wasn't very hopeful. Chapter 136. Daryl was uncertain whether his sister-in-law was alive or dead. Perhaps we'll encounter your sister or her children by chance while on vacation, he suggested. After a brief pause, Audrey replied, my sister was still quite young when we parted ways. Women undergo significant changes from childhood. Even if I were to meet her children, who's to say I would recognize them as my niece or nephews? Come on, let's go on a holiday. Unable to dismiss her daughter's enthusiasm, Audrey lifted her spirits and agreed to a beach vacation with Elisa. Seeing her mother's agreement, Elisa exchanged a knowing glance with her father and shifted the conversation to other topics. As she chatted, she recounted the events of the day. Mom, I saw Zachary today. He stopped his car and even rolled down the window to talk to me. Unfortunately, he threw out the bouquet I had stuffed into his car, she said cheerfully. Audrey was at a loss for words. I also met a new friend named Serenity. For some reason, she felt familiar the moment I saw her, almost as if I had a sense of kinship with her. She even helped me, so I left her my business card. Audrey inquired, is she the unfortunate woman who was morally blackmailed by her relatives? Yes, that's her. What a small world. The news about both of you went viral simultaneously, and out of thousands of people, the person whose bike you stopped happened to be her. She even agreed to take you to York Corporation to pursue Zachary, Audrey remarked. Teasing her daughter, Audrey added, what's even more surprising is that you actually consider her a friend. Daryl, let's keep an eye on the sky later to see if pigs start flying. I can't believe your darling daughter. I actually made a friend. Mom! Elisa exclaimed, clearly annoyed. What's wrong with me having a friend? I really like Serenity. She makes me feel at home and even encouraged me to go after Zachary. Audrey felt helpless about her daughter's crush on Zachary. You'd forget your own name if it had anything to do with him. Yet, she couldn't deny her admiration for Zachary. If her daughter were to win him over, she would be thrilled. There were only a few exceptional men like Zachary, and the York family was equally impressive. If their families united through marriage, it would not only resolve any discord but also ensure her daughter's happiness for a lifetime. When you have some free time, bring Serenity over so I can meet her, Audrey suggested, feeling that her daughter needed more friends. It was uncommon for Elisa to make a friend, so she was eager to meet the girl who made her feel such a connection at first sight. Sure. We'll see if she reaches out to me first. I'll bring her to meet you when we get closer. Wait, no. Mom, you're making it sound like I'm introducing a girlfriend to you. I'm your daughter. Audrey playfully poked her daughter's head. You're the one misinterpreting things. Don't blame me. Elisa stuck out her tongue in jest. She realized she might need to take the initiative to contact Serenity. However, she didn't mind doing so. Since she liked Serenity, she was happy to make the first move, just as she did with Zachary. If she loved him, she was determined to pursue him and express her feelings. Chapter 137. When Serenity returned to her store, she spotted Sean there. She smiled and greeted him, saying, "Sean, don't you have work today?" Sean looked at her, his admiration concealed deep within his eyes, and replied, "I worked overtime last night, so I can go in a little later today." "Why are you late?" Though he asked casually, he was genuinely curious about Serenity's recent situation with her husband. Jasmine had mentioned that Serenity's husband helped suppress the trending search and even accompanied her back to her hometown to gather evidence for a counterattack, leaving Serenity feeling grateful toward him. Sean thought to himself, "I want to help Serenity as well, but she hasn't given me the opportunity. I called her that day, but she didn't answer. She had only sent him a message later saying that she was fine. I was late because I helped a pretty lady who needed assistance on my way here." "Oh, that smells delicious. What are you cooking, Jasmine?" Serenity intended to head to the cashier to sit down when she caught a whiff of the aroma. She turned and walked toward the small kitchen. Sean followed her, wanting to catch up and embrace her, but he lacked the courage to do so. He didn't feel bold enough to flirt with her, believing his achievements had not yet earned him that right. He loved her and felt it necessary to respect her. Even though he longed to be close to her, to hug her, or even to kiss her, he had to suppress those feelings because she was now married. The thought pained his heart. To Serenity, he was merely a younger brother. Even if she needed a man for a quick marriage, he knew she would never consider him. When Jasmine remained quiet, Sean said to Serenity, "I brought some food from home for you and Jazz to enjoy." He sent a delightful breakfast to Serenity and Jasmine. The Lowe family was wealthy, and their chef, who hailed from a five-star hotel, was well compensated for his exceptional cooking. Additionally, as childhood friends, he was well aware of their culinary preferences. "Lucky me!" Serenity exclaimed as she and Jasmine savored the meal prepared by Sean. Sean watched the two women enjoy their food with delight, unable to hide the grin spreading across his face. With a smile, he asked, "Serenity, when can you invite me out for a meal?" "This Saturday. I'll treat you to lunch. What do you want to eat?" "Jasmine, you should join us too. We don't have much business on weekends, so closing the shop for a day won't hurt. Plus, if you stay home, your families will just nag you about when you'll get married. Why not enjoy a meal together instead?" Jasmine quickly agreed. "Sure." She, too, dreaded the thought of spending the weekend at home, facing her parents' relentless questioning. Her mother often urged her to marry into a wealthy family to live a life of luxury like her aunt. Jasmine felt overwhelmed by her mother's persistent pressure. Her father was slightly more understanding, suggesting that she should find someone from a family with a similar background to avoid any issues of status. "There's a restaurant with great food next to Beans and Cream. It's not overly fancy, but it's nice enough, and the prices are reasonable, so it's quite popular. Let's eat there. After lunch, we can head next door to Beans and Cream for a cup of coffee. After all, it's the most upscale cafe in the city." The last time Serenity accompanied her friend on a blind date at Beans and Cream, she felt that the ambience was pleasant, but she hadn't paid attention to the shops nearby. She intended to treat Sean to a meal, but he unexpectedly suggested that venue for lunch. Regardless, she had no reason to decline. Chapter 138. Serenity responded cheerfully, "All right, it's settled then." Sean was also pleased. He eagerly anticipated the arrival of Saturday. Suddenly, several cars pulled up in front of the bookstore. Sean said, "I'll go check it out." He turned and walked away. Before long, he returned and informed Serenity, "It's your relatives." Serenity had just finished her meal. She wiped her mouth with a tissue and remarked, "Since they're here, I suppose I can't keep being afraid of them." She wasn't surprised that those outrageous individuals had tracked her down. Thanks to the majority of netizens, her uncles' and cousins' jobs had been exposed. They also had solid connections, and the incident had trended twice in the news, making it easy for them to find Serenity and her sister. Serenity. The Hunt family brothers entered, led by Mike. 8 of them arrived, all decked out in designer clothing and clutching a set of keys. They jangled their keys occasionally as if they were made of gold. However, they appeared quite worn out. It seemed Serenity's retaliation had taken a toll on them. They were struggling to cope with the backlash from furious netizens. Serenity didn't ask about her grandmother's condition in the hospital. A kind-hearted person had sent her a private message, informing her that her grandmother was not finding peace there. Many people had flocked to the ward to criticize her, aggravating the irritable old woman. The supposedly devoted sons and grandsons were at the hospital but couldn't even protect a single patient. How amusing! Oh, what brings all of you here together? You even brought the whole entourage. She had many male cousins, but none of her female cousins had come to the city. At the start, when there was a lot of fake news exposed on the internet to attract attention, uninformed netizens targeted Serenity and her sister with harsh words. Throughout the entire Hunt family, not a single person defended the sisters. Serenity walked over to the cashier's desk, sat down, and took out her crafting tools and prepared materials. She began working on the miniature tree she had promised to give to Zachary, as well as the lucky cat. I don't have many stools in my shop, so I won't ask you to sit. If you have something to say, go ahead, I'm listening, she said, continuing her crafting as she spoke. Her demeanor sparked a reaction in the Hunt brothers. Mike took several deep breaths and said gently, Serenity, we're a close-knit family and share blood ties. Can you reconsider going that far? Yes, we made mistakes, and we apologize. However, our grandparents are also your grandparents. They're elderly and can't handle stress. If you're unwilling to cover grandmom's treatment, that's understandable. There are many of us, so if we each contribute a little, it will cover her medical bills. Still, you should at least visit her in the hospital. Grandmom was heartbroken by what you said about us online. I've lost count of how many times she cried over it. It's detrimental to her health. Serenity, if you delete that post, we can consider this matter resolved. Regardless of everything, we're still family. You wouldn't be happy if we suffered too. After Mike finished speaking, Serenity looked up at him, amused. Why wouldn't I be happy? I haven't fabricated anything or slandered you, I simply stated the facts. As for visiting grandmom in the hospital, I had actually thought about it and was contemplating how much money to give. Of course, I can't cover the medical bills. Fees. Over a decade ago, they stated that they no longer require Liberty and me to care for them while they are alive. They also indicated that they do not need us to handle their burial after they pass away. My life is challenging, and my income is limited. After covering all essential expenses, I have very little remaining. Chapter 139. However, after being morally blackmailed by you, who deliberately distorted the truth and labeled me as unfilial, I've decided not to visit her anymore. I won't provide her with any money either. You've all criticized me online, and now you expect me to approach her just to face more scolding? Serenity, they are our grandparents. A little scolding from them won't kill you. While you aren't obligated to support them, anyone with a conscience would offer some living expenses. It's been years, yet neither you nor your sister have visited them or provided financial assistance. If you can still sleep at night, we won't press the issue. We've already deleted our blog post, so you should delete yours as well. Do you understand the impact your post has had on all of us? We could sue you for cyberbullying. However, since we're cousins, we've decided to address this matter privately rather than take it to court. John, the most promising member of the Hunt family's generation, spoke with an air of superiority and arrogance, as if lecturing Serenity. Through his words, he continued to accuse Serenity and Liberty of being unfilial for not providing their grandparents with living expenses or visiting them. Yet, he conveniently overlooked the agreement signed by the seniors, which stated that Serenity and Liberty were not obligated to support them financially or attend their funeral. Serenity scoffed. Go ahead and sue me. I'll be waiting for the court summons. And I'm the one cyberbullying you? Wasn't it you who cyberbullied Liberty and me? You can bully us, but we can't clarify the truth. I didn't hire anyone to mislead public opinion either. The netizens exposed your identities because they couldn't tolerate you. Indeed, we are ungrateful and haven't provided our grandparents with any financial support. But may I ask, Mr. Hunt, How much do you contribute to them each month? How often do you visit them? Some individuals simply lack a conscience. Do you recall how Liberty and I were kicked out of our home? Or how our house was forcibly taken from us? You were the one who gained the most from that situation. They named you my parents' adopted son. How ridiculous. You've grown accustomed to living off someone else's wealth, and you still want more. John Hunt, let me make it clear, I will never delete that post. Go ahead and sue me if you dare. I'll even invite the media to cover our lawsuit live. The estate is in my parents' name, which means I can use the lawsuit to clarify that. Don't try to convince me that you're my parents' adopted son. My parents had no son when they passed away. Your adoption was merely a pretext to claim the property left by my parents. John turned pale, left without a way to respond. Considering that he had been suspended from his job and was likely to lose the position he had fought for years to achieve, he suppressed his anger, softened his expression, and said gently, "Serenity, I was wrong. Please, be the bigger person and don't hold this against us. Grandmother's condition is critical now. Regardless of her past mistakes, she is still our grandmother. Given her age and illness, can you forgive her and accompany us to the hospital to visit her?" The Hunt family's strategy was to have Serenity visit her grandmother in the hospital to alleviate the tension between both parties. Additionally, it would convey to the public that they had reconciled, hoping to put an end to the backlash against the family. They had all been affected by this incident. Being criticized by netizens was a minor issue, however, it ultimately impacted their work and business as well. The two elderly individuals remained stubborn and refused to relent. Nevertheless, when they learned that their children and grandchildren's jobs were affected, they felt remorseful. This concern prompted them to agree to let their grandchildren reach out to Serenity for negotiations. Understanding that Liberty was now just a housewife and that Serenity primarily handled this matter, they chose to approach Serenity directly without involving Liberty. "I heard you're married. If your husband is available, bring him to the hospital so Grandmom can meet him and assess him. We don't want a repeat of what happened with your sister." From this conversation, Serenity realized that her cousins had figured out the situation regarding her and Liberty, which indicated their capability. "Stop wasting your breath, John. If she refuses to cooperate, just vandalize her store." Chapter 140. Serenity's youngest cousin was only 17 or 18 years old, an age where impulsiveness and passion often dominate. He also had a terrible temper. When Serenity refused to go to the hospital or delete her post, he became angry and threatened to vandalize her bookstore. Serenity fixed him with a cold stare. "Don't you dare." Her gaze was stern and frosty, and her icy words exuded an authoritative presence that caused the Hunt brothers to instinctively shrink back. "Noah." Mike turned to glare at the youngest cousin. When Noah fell silent, Mike turned back to Serenity with a smile. "Serenity, please don't be upset with Noah. That's just how he expresses himself. As John mentioned earlier, we are still close cousins. Regardless of the situation, we are family. What do you gain from humiliating us? We acknowledge our mistake in this matter and sincerely apologize. Let's put the past behind us, shall we? You don't need to worry about any financial compensation. All we ask is that you visit Grandmom. She really wants to see you." Recently, both Grandmom and Granddad have been feeling guilty about how they treated you in the past. They believe they let your parents down. Serenity, none of us are perfect, we all make mistakes. What matters is that we recognize them. Our grandparents are old and understand their faults. Please give them the chance to make amends and apologize to you. Only by appealing to emotions and reconciling could Serenity be persuaded to delete the post and resolve the situation. Even if they wanted financial restitution, it was too late to ask for it now, they could only surrender. In truth, they all regretted their actions. If they had known that Serenity was so strong-willed and capable of airing the family's dirty laundry in retaliation, they would never have resorted to such tactics. They suffered a significant setback. They believed that the Hunt sisters valued their reputation and that no one would come to the sisters' aid. However, they never anticipated that so many people would support Serenity and Liberty when the tables were turned. Instead, they found themselves on the receiving end of severe consequences. Given their family circumstances and income, each of them only needed to contribute a small amount to cover their grandmother's medical expenses. Even if they chose not to, their grandparents had hundreds of thousands in savings, more than enough to settle the medical bills. Ultimately, they simply did not want to spend their own money and instead wanted to make the Hunt sisters bear the costs. In the end, the losses far outweighed any potential gains. In fact, they gained nothing at all, only a face full of dust. They had no choice but to confront Serenity in person, apologize to her, and plead for her mercy. Despite their deep resentment towards her, they realized they would have to wait until this situation was resolved before seeking their revenge. Outwardly, they had to pretend to seek reconciliation with her. Chapter 141. Serenity chuckled and remarked, "I heard Granddad and Grandmom are doing well in the hospital, eating well, sleeping well, and coming down pretty hard on me too. They don't seem to think they're in the wrong. Are you sure they want to apologize to me?" Mike instinctively wanted to defend his grandparents, but he found himself at a loss for words. Grandmom and Granddad had not genuinely acknowledged their faults, rather, the Hunt family had persuaded them to do so. The family aimed to move past the situation before it escalated further. With reconciliation between both parties, public interest would soon diminish, and people would shift their focus to the latest trending news. It wouldn't be long before netizens forgot about the Hunts, allowing the family to regain their peace. If there was one lesson the Hunts learned, it was that the internet could be a powerful double-edged sword. While it could be a tool for attack, those who misused it often faced severe repercussions when their actions backfired. Serenity pointed them toward the door, firmly refusing to engage any further. The Hunt boys scowled in response. In a corner, Jasmine and Sean shot them a warning glance. After a moment, John said, "Serenity, you should learn to forgive and forget. Don't burn your bridges." With that, he turned on his heel and walked out. Among his peers, John was the brightest in his family and the most accomplished in his town. Praise and flattery followed him everywhere in his hometown, and with Serenity putting him on the spot, John refused to endure the humiliation. John harbored resentment towards Serenity, and she believed that Serenity had no regard for family. They were cousins, after all. The entire family was close when Serenity's parents were still alive. However, after the passing of their parents, Serenity and Liberty began to clash with the rest of the family. Serenity would leap at John if she knew what he was thinking. The Hunts understood better than anyone why Serenity and Liberty had grown distant from them. It took a lot of nerve for him to place the blame on the sisters. The Hunt brothers and cousins drove away in their cars. Except for Noah, who was too young to have a driver's license, the others each took their own vehicles, totaling 7 cars. Their departure was just as chaotic as their arrival. The least expensive car among them cost $200,000 to $300,000, while John drove a Mercedes-Benz valued at over $1 million. They're unbelievable, Serenity. Don't rush to make amends. Let them sit in anxiety for days and stew in their mistakes before you even think about reconciliation. Otherwise, they'll see you as a pushover and believe that a fake apology can erase all the harm they've done. They'll only try to take advantage of you again. After reading Serenity's post on Twitter, Sean's heart went out to her. He despised himself for being young and just starting out in the workforce, feeling unable to be the support Serenity needed at that moment. If he had the influence, status, and sophistication of the York heir, Sean would make the Hunts' lives a living hell. "I won't forgive them easily. It's clear they don't genuinely want peace. They only came looking for me because the online community pressured them. And they must face the consequences of their actions. They would rather die than admit they are wrong if not for the repercussions in their lives now." The Hunts never believed they were in the wrong. They thought Serenity should cover the medical expenses now that old Mrs. Hunt was ill. They expected Serenity to pay for gas and travel costs as they accompanied old Mrs. Hunt to the city and visited her regularly. Since old Mr. and Mrs. Hunt lived in Serenity's family home, it created the illusion that Serenity's family should be responsible for the elderly couple. In their view, Serenity's family should be the ones footing the bill for everything. As for the past, the Hunts chose to ignore it. Honestly, I wouldn't believe such people exist if I hadn't seen and heard it myself. I'm not just referring to one or two individuals, the entire family is strange. Jasmine had never witnessed anything like it. It was astonishing. Chapter 142. Sean found the Hunts to be truly unbelievable. Their shamelessness reached an entirely new level. "Serenity, I recorded your conversation with them," Jasmine said. "I'll send you the voice recording in case they fabricate anything about you online again." Serenity gave her best friend a thumbs up. The Hunts had her so worked up that she forgot to record the conversation on her phone. "Sean, aren't you going to work?" After sending the voice recording to her best friend, Jasmine noticed her cousin was still at the shop and urged him to hurry. Reluctant to leave, Sean replied, "I'm working at my family's company. It doesn't matter if I'm a little late. On the contrary, you should make an effort to follow the company's rules and regulations since it's a family business. Set a good example so no one can criticize you. Hurry up, you know Aunt Rachel will be upset if she finds out you're not in the office." As the eldest child, Jasmine's aunt and uncle had high expectations for Sean to eventually take over the family business. Serenity added, "Sean, you should hurry to work. If you don't leave now, it'll be time to clock out before you know it." Even though Sean complained, he grabbed his car keys and headed out, reminding Serenity, "Don't forget to buy me dinner." "Of course. When have I ever broken a promise to you?" Sean left the bookshop with reluctance. With Sean gone, the bookshop returned to its usual tranquility. Jasmine continued to read novels while Serenity focused on her crafts. As noon approached and school was out for the day, she put away her tools. Meanwhile, after business discussions concluded in the CEO's office at York Corporation, Josh casually remarked, "Mr. York, I heard that the Mrs.'s relatives made quite an entrance when they arrived at her shop, arriving in several cars." Zachary's dark eyes sparkled, but he maintained a neutral expression. Without raising his chin, he said calmly, "Serenity is her own woman. Those people can't get their way just by showing up, she has her own strength." Noticing that his boss appeared unfazed, Josh wisely shifted the topic. It had only been a short time since their marriage, and given Zachary's naturally detached demeanor, it was likely that Serenity needed more time to capture his heart. "Oh, Serenity. The battle is far from over. Keep pushing forward. You can do it." Josh silently encouraged Serenity, hoping she would soon win Zachary's affection. It would certainly be interesting when that happened. Lunch together. Zachary signed the paperwork and set down his pen. He looked at Josh and declined the invitation, saying, "You distracted me from lunch." Josh was left speechless. "You're as nosy as a woman." "I prefer silence." Josh was utterly stunned. How was he supposed to gather information for Zachary if he couldn't delve into other people's affairs? Chapter 143. Zachary felt a twinge of concern that Serenity might struggle with the Hunt cousins, but he kept this to himself and didn't even call her. Now that they had been married for nearly a month, he had a better understanding of Serenity's personality. He knew she would reach out for help if things became overwhelming. The absence of any calls from her indicated that she was managing fine. Moreover, she had a solid foundation to stand on, so she wouldn't be at a disadvantage. With this in mind, Zachary switched to another car after work and drove to Wiltspoon School. As Zachary was leaving the office, Josh grumbled that Zachary had been delegating all the business dinners to him lately. Zachary replied, "I have a wife. I need to go home and spend some quality time bonding with her after work." Josh was left speechless. What a flimsy excuse. He's clearly just trying to get out of it. Josh thought to himself. Ever since his marriage, Zachary had been neglecting his work, which was completely out of character for him. Of course, Zachary was unaware of Josh's complaints. Upon arriving at Wiltspoon School, he noticed students pouring into Serenity's bookstore, some browsing reference books while others picked out stationery. Given his imposing presence, Zachary chose not to enter the shop, fearing he might scare the students away, which could hurt Serenity's business. Serenity had suggested that he should consider a career in education, as he was stricter than most teachers. A little while later, the students returned to school in groups for their extracurricular activities. Zachary stepped out of the car and entered the shop. Serenity was tidying up the cash register when she noticed Zachary entering. Surprised, she watched him stride into the shop, feeling a sense of awe at his commanding presence once again. He resembled a king, bestowing his presence upon mere peasants. It was no surprise that students hesitated to enter the shop when he was nearby. Zachary exuded an imposing aura that naturally repelled people. In no time, Zachary stood before Serenity, smugly noticing her admiration for him. He was fully aware of his attractive physique. Without revealing any emotion, Zachary cleared his throat. Snapping back to reality, Serenity smiled and asked, "Don't you have to work late tonight? How did you find the time to see me?" Initially, Zachary used to come home after midnight every day during their early marriage. Deceiving her, Zachary replied in a low voice, "The project I was working on has wrapped up, so I don't have any overtime tonight." "Oh." Serenity then inquired, "Have you eaten? Should I order takeout for you?" Before Zachary could respond, Jasmine approached and said, "Serenity, you should go home with Mr. York. I'll take care of the shop. There's not much happening at night anyway." Since students rarely had time to wander after extracurricular activities, few would visit the shop unless they were searching for reference materials. "All right. We'll head back then." Serenity agreed to her best friend's offer to supervise the shop. She gathered her belongings and pulled out a copper wire tree from under the cash register to give to Zachary. "I made this for you. Do you like it? The maneki Nico isn't ready yet. I'll probably need until tomorrow morning to finish it," she explained. Zachary accepted the miniature tree, pleased that his pot was larger than Callum's. The harsh lines on his face softened as he replied gruffly, "Sure. I'm glad you like it. Let's go," Serenity said as she walked. She waved goodbye to her best friend near the cash register before exiting the bookshop with her husband. She had hoped to ride her e-bike, but Zachary firmly stated, "We're taking my car." Chapter 144. After a brief pause, Zachary said, "I'll drive you to work tomorrow morning." Appreciating Zachary's thoughtfulness, Serenity decided to leave her e-bike at the shop and accept a ride in his car. Jasmine watched the couple leave, muttering to herself, "They're acting more like a couple now." Despite Zachary's aloof and antisocial demeanor, his attentiveness to Serenity was evident in the little things he did. "I would happily marry a man like Mr. York if he came into my life." It was unfortunate that her blind dates paled in comparison to Zachary. The so-called fine men were only deemed superior due to their high incomes, but they fell short of truly being considered fine men. The man Jasmine had gone on a blind date with at Beans and Cream had developed an interest in Serenity. He even called the matchmaker privately to inquire about her, only to learn that she was already taken. He must be living in a fantasy world. Jasmine called the man to express her frustration, threatening to ruin him if he pursued Serenity privately and interfered with her relationship. "Oh, Serenity. You must be here to visit your sister." Serenity encountered her sister's neighbor from downstairs, who greeted her warmly. "Mrs. Zachs, have you had dinner?" "Yes, I'm here to see my sister." Serenity stopped to chat with Mrs. Zachs and gently stroked the hair of Mrs. Zachs's young granddaughter. She pulled out a few fruits from her bag and offered them to the little girl, who looked to her grandmother for permission before accepting the gift. "Thank you, Serenity," the little girl said politely. Serenity praised the little girl's manners and then leaned closer to Mrs. Zachs, whispering, "Mrs. Zachs, everyone seemed to be looking at me strangely when I got out of the car. Is there something wrong?" "Me? No, you look the same as always," Mrs. Zachs replied with a smile. "You must be imagining things." "Oh, I get it. They might be looking at you that way because of your sister. I don't know if you're aware, but your sister had a fight with your brother-in-law. She actually chased him down several streets with a kitchen knife. Everyone thought you were the feisty one back in the day. No one knew your sister had that in her." During the 3 years that Serenity lived in Liberty's home, she once defended her nephew and ended up in a screaming match with someone. Despite being just one person against an entire family, she emerged victorious. Since that incident, she earned a reputation for her sassiness in the neighborhood. My sister and brother-in-law had a fight? Serenity's face went pale while Zachary raised an eyebrow. I'm not sure what triggered it, but everyone saw your sister chasing your brother-in-law with a knife the other day. We only saw her return alone. I heard that your brother-in-law's family came to pick him up. Your sister probably didn't tell you because she didn't want you to worry about her. Chapter 145. Everyone in the neighborhood was aware of the close bond between the sisters. To spare her sister the worry, Liberty kept certain matters to herself. Thank you, Mrs. Zachs. Serenity expressed her gratitude to Mrs. Zachs before continuing her brisk walk toward her sister's apartment, pulling Zachary along with her. My brother-in-law was upset that my sister hadn't made lunch for him when I dropped her off the other day. Hank looked like he wanted to hit my sister, but he wiped that expression off his face when he saw me, Serenity chattered to Zachary. Why didn't my sister tell me? Serenity felt sympathy for her sister. Women often received a second chance at life through marriage, but her sister's experience didn't seem to be going smoothly. Hank's attitude toward Liberty had soured less than 3 years into their marriage. Zachary responded firmly, your sister doesn't want you to worry. Mrs. Zachs mentioned that your sister once chased your brother-in-law down the street with a knife. That indicates your sister had the upper hand. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. It was difficult for Serenity to shake off her concerns. However, she decided not to dwell on the subject any further with Zachary. She led him up the stairs and pulled out the key her sister had given her to unlock the door. Liberty was busy cooking in the kitchen. When she heard the door open, she assumed Hank was home. She grabbed her pan and stepped out of the kitchen, prepared to defend herself if Hank dared to lay a hand on her again. Hank had not reached out to her since returning to his parents' home. However, her in-laws had bombarded her phone with hateful messages and criticized her in the Browns family group chat. They even rallied other relatives to accuse Liberty of failing as a wife, claiming her actions warranted a beating. In summary, they claimed she deserved it, placing the blame on her rather than Hank. Some older relatives felt entitled to urge her to apologize to Hank, citing the importance of not going to bed angry. They insisted it wasn't a blood feud, so discussing it in the family group chat was unnecessary. Naturally, the Browns' relatives sided with Hank, suggesting she should be more understanding of him and cut down on spending. They argued that Hank had a tough job, which justified his occasional temper when he came home. Liberty was expected to tolerate his mood swings. Furious, Liberty left the Browns' family group chat, vowing never to visit her relatives' homes with Hank again. Aunt Swir. Sonny was sitting on the living room floor, playing with his building blocks when he spotted his aunt entering the house. He jumped up in excitement and ran towards Serenity. Meanwhile, Liberty instinctively retreated to the kitchen. With the bruises on her face still visible, she had avoided going out for groceries over the past 2 days. Thankfully, she had enough ingredients in the fridge to last for several meals. Serenity picked up her nephew and kissed him on the cheek, then encouraged him to join Zachary while she headed to the kitchen. Liberty. Aren't you working at the shop tonight, Saren? Liberty responded, not turning to face her sister. Jazz is at the shop tonight. Liberty, what's happening between you and my brother-in-law? Serenity asked directly as she approached her sister. Catching sight of the bruises on Liberty's face, Serenity quickly turned her sister around. I'm going to make Hank pay. Serenity exclaimed, her anger flaring as she spun on her heel. How could he dare to beat up her sister? Did Hank really believe her sister had no family to support her? As long as Serenity was there, she would not allow anyone to mistreat her sister. Chapter 146. Serenity's sister was her pillar of strength. Now that Serenity had grown up and gained the means to help, it was her turn to protect her sister. Saren. Liberty grasped her sister's hand and pleaded, please don't go. The injury is only superficial. I didn't let him get away with it. I chased him down a few streets with a knife and scared him silly. I'm confident he won't be violent with me again. If he has done it once, he will do it again, Liberty. He won't know fear if you don't stand up for yourself when he lays a hand on you. He'll only attack you again. There must be zero tolerance for domestic violence. I understand. That's why I didn't back down and fight him as well. Tevin confronted him with a knife. You should have seen the terror on his face, his legs were shaking. I've heard that you must win the first fight between couples, and I did. He should think twice before raising his hands to me again. Liberty held her sister back firmly, preventing Serenity from seeking revenge on Hank. He's back at his parents' house. If you go there, you'll be facing his entire family, and it won't end well for you. Please don't go. I won't tolerate his behavior any longer. If he screams and raises his hand at me again, I will fight back. Liberty, why didn't you tell me? Heartbroken, Serenity gently caressed her sister's bruised face and asked in distress, does it still hurt, Liberty? Damn Hank. How could he be so rough with you? You've been together for so many years and even had a son. I can't believe he hit you. Liberty curled her lips in bitterness. He has been repulsed by my appearance for quite some time. Did Zachary come over too? Yes, he's here. He's playing with Sunny in the living room, Serenity replied. Liberty spoke softly to encourage her sister. Seren, you see. My marriage is deteriorating, and it all stems from my decision to leave my job and trust your brother-in-law when he assured me he would take care of me. It's crucial for women to maintain financial independence. No matter the circumstances, having your own source of income is essential. Don't fall for the nonsense men say about financially supporting you. It can make you passive. While it's great if he upholds his marriage vows and loves you forever, if you end up with a man like your brother-in-law, just look at what happened to me. Additionally, you need to prioritize your appearance. Take time for self-care and maintain your figure. Men often lie when they claim they will love you regardless of how you change. They are superficial, and their values are often skin-deep. I will, Liberty, Serenity replied. Serenity owned a bookshop, which allowed her to manage a household effectively. Zachary never mentioned wanting her to leave her job and support him at home. Instead, he had her sign a contract for divorce 6 months later. Regarding gaining weight after childbirth, Serenity felt confident that it wouldn't happen to her. If she and Zachary were to part ways, she had no intention of remarrying, she was content being on her own. If she wanted to raise a child, she could always adopt from an orphanage. Why did you two fight, Liberty? Serenity inquired, curious about the reason behind the argument. Liberty turned off the stove and took the pan away. I assume you and Zachary haven't had dinner yet. Let's eat together. I'll make extra pasta. She had only prepared enough for herself and Sunny. I'll handle it, Liberty, Serenity offered, knowing she was a better cook than her sister. She began gathering the pasta and ingredients for the sauce and then turned to her sister, asking, Tell me, Liberty. Why did he hit you? It's about splitting things evenly. Since he insisted on doing it his way, I demanded the same for everything else. That's when he manhandled me. I wouldn't have confronted him if it hadn't been for his sudden outburst. Now that Serenity was informed, Liberty revealed the cause of the fight. Serenity reprimanded her brother-in-law silently in her mind. Although Liberty prevented her from retaliating against Hank, Serenity planned to confront him after dinner. As Liberty's family, Serenity felt it was important to send a clear message: she would protect her sister from anyone who tried to hurt her. Chapter 147. Having only each other for many years, Liberty understood Serenity well enough to know her sister would stand by her side. In a bid to keep Serenity close, Liberty poured a bottle of wine and enjoyed a glass with her sister until midnight before allowing the couple to leave. As a lightweight, Serenity quickly felt the effects of the stiff drink. By the time she left her sister's home, she was tipsy, dizzy, and staggering with each step. Liberty saw the young couple off at the door. During her previous job, Liberty had attended social events with her boss and had learned to handle her liquor well enough to manage a glass of wine without issue. Zachary, Serenity is drunk. Please take good care of her, Liberty urged her brother-in-law. Liberty intentionally got her sister tipsy to prevent Serenity from seeking revenge on Hank. She feared that if Serenity went to the Browns' residence, they would gang up on her. The Browns were just as unreasonable as Liberty's own relatives. I will take good care of Serenity, Liberty, Zachary assured her. Zachary effortlessly helped Serenity down the stairs, but after she nearly stumbled multiple times, he ended up picking her up and carrying her. "Why did you drink when you shouldn't have? Your sister had a reason for that bottle of wine, yet you foolishly decided to drink," he scolded. Serenity wrapped her arms around Zachary's neck and let out a belch. With the smell of alcohol invading his space, Zachary turned his head in disgust and said, "Don't breathe your alcohol-laden breath on me. You reek." "I want to." Serenity pressed her face against his. "I'll stink you to death. Why didn't you stop me when you realized what your sister was up to?" Zachary felt uneasy with her so close and almost pushed her to the ground. "Serenity." Frowning, he exclaimed, "I know you're still sober. Don't even think about getting handsy." Serenity laughed softly and rested her head on his shoulder. "I want to get back at Hank for mistreating my sister. If I can't go today, I'll go tomorrow. I'll storm into his office to confront him. How can you say my breath smells? I didn't complain about yours when you were drunk last time." Zachary grumbled, "I didn't ask you to look after me when I was drunk, but now you need my help to carry you." Serenity replied quietly, "I didn't ask you to carry me." Zachary was left speechless. Well, no good deed goes unpunished. After they descended the stairs, Zachary helped his inebriated wife into the car. To avoid her groping him, he put Serenity in the back seat so her wandering hands wouldn't interfere with his driving. Serenity didn't mind. She lay down in the car and quickly fell asleep. Zachary glanced back at her. Seeing she had dozed off without a care, he narrowed his eyes and kept quiet. He drove his wife home in silence. About halfway there, the woman in the back seat suddenly jolted awake and shouted, "Pigs will fly when men become dependable." Then she fell back down and resumed her beauty sleep. Zachary turned to look at her again. He sat in silence for a moment before his deep voice broke the quiet in the car. "Don't judge all men the same way. It takes all kinds to make a world. Some men can't be trusted, but there are dependable ones too." Zachary would be one of those reliable men if he were to fall for her. Even if love didn't exist between them, he would still do his best. As a husband in the next 6 months, Zachary didn't expect an answer from the woman in the back seat. Soon, they arrived back at Brinfield. Zachary parked the car, stepped out, and opened the back seat door. Leaning in, he called to the girl, "We're home, Serenity. Time to get out." Chapter 148. As Zachary woke her, Serenity sat up and rubbed her eyes innocently, staring directly at him without blinking. Suddenly, she stretched out her arms and said, her beautiful eyes sparkling, "Carry me out of the car, handsome." Wincing, Zachary reached out to gently knock her on the head. His tone turned icy. "I warned you. Don't act drunk and take advantage of me. You may be intoxicated, but you're not completely out of it. You know what you're doing." Serenity was indeed aware. However, the alcohol had made her quite impulsive. Despite his repeated warnings, Serenity couldn't keep her hands to herself. There was no way a big man like him could be frightened by a young lady's advances. He would become a laughingstock if anyone found out. "Zachary." Serenity giggled and asked, "Do you have some sort of issue like the heir of the Yorks?" He seemed more innocent than she was when it came to matters between men and women. With alcohol buzzing in her head, Serenity couldn't resist teasing him. "What kind of issue? You either can't get it up, or you swing the other way." Zachary's face darkened. "Nana has been playing matchmaker for us. I thought a man in his 30s who is still single must be unattractive. I realized I was wrong when I met you. You're not unattractive, in fact, you're quite handsome. So, I was wondering if there was something wrong with you." Amid her laughter, Serenity's hands wandered over his chiseled face. "Zachary, are you a wife-beater? I should warn you that I'm trained in self-defense, and I'll fight back if you lay a hand on me. Oh my, I'm tempted to kiss your handsome face. How about you give me a smooch? Come on, pucker up." Zachary's insolent advances and arrogance pushed Serenity to her limits. He pressed her down in the back seat, towering over her with his muscular frame while pinning her hands above her head. Leaning in, He sealed her babbling lips with his own. He was determined to show her something new. Perhaps Serenity was tipsy, as she did not lapse into shock as she had previously. Instead, she responded with unexpected passion. Zachary had intended to give her a gentle butterfly kiss, but her reaction ignited a desire within him. He deepened the kiss, locking his tongue with hers. After they broke apart, Zachary exited the car and grabbed her feet, dragging her out. He hoisted her from the vehicle, slamming the door shut before tossing her over his shoulder. With Serenity dangling upside down, Zachary began to walk away. Still dazed from the kiss, Serenity barely processed being lifted off the seat. The next moment, she found herself slung over his shoulder, the pressure on her stomach making her uncomfortable. She struggled against him. "Zachary! Zachary! Put me down!" His grip was rough. "Couldn't you at least show a little tenderness?" He ignored her pleas. "Zachary, I promise I won't flirt with you. I'll stick to our agreement. Just put me down. I feel nauseous. I might throw up all over you." Zachary warned her sternly, "Don't you dare vomit on me. Then let me go. I feel sick." "Are you still drunk?" "Yes, but, oh no, I'm a bit sober now." "Well, half sober." After hearing her response, Zachary smirked briefly before straightening his expression. He finally set her down so she could walk. Then, he simply walked away, leaving her behind. Was he angry? Chapter 149. In contrast, Zachary felt no anger at all. He simply wanted to avoid letting Serenity catch him smiling. It wasn't until he entered the residential building that he noticed his wife had not followed him. He stopped abruptly, turned around, and asked in a serious tone, "Are you planning to spend the night standing there?" Snapping out of her reverie, Serenity hurried over, eager to comply. "No hard feelings, Mr. York." Zachary shot her a frosty glance. His expression often conveyed that vibe. Gently poking her forehead, he said, "This better not happen again." Acting like a well-behaved child, Serenity raised her hand in promise, saying, "I promise it won't happen again." Without saying anything further, Zachary turned and continued walking, with Serenity quickly trailing behind him. As she gazed at his muscular back, Serenity felt the effects of the alcohol fading. She muttered to herself, "Nana told me to make a move on him, but I lacked the confidence to warm the heart of an ice prince." Still, flirting with him was undeniably enjoyable. She only had the courage to take a chance because she had a glass of wine. Typically, Serenity would only dare to caress his face, but he seemed to guard himself as if she were attempting to pull his pants off rather than simply touching his face. Once they arrived home, Zachary headed straight for the kitchen. Since Serenity had no idea what he was up to, she inquired, but he ignored her. Not wanting to intrude on his business, Serenity walked to the balcony and sat on the swing. Leaning back against the seat, she gently pushed off with her toes, creating a soft sway. Her thoughts were consumed by her sister's marriage. Serenity and Zachary had married at first sight, having no prior acquaintance before signing the papers. After their wedding, the couple continued their lives with mutual respect. They likely weren't close enough to reveal their flaws to one another. Undeniably, Serenity had a better situation than her sister. At least she wouldn't be affected by Zachary's attitude toward her, as their relationship lacked any emotional involvement. Nonetheless, Liberty and Hank eventually married after years of dating. Though her sister might claim to have given up on her brother-in-law, Liberty still harbored feelings for Hank. Moreover, Sonny was also part of the equation. Reflecting on the love and affection her sister once shared with her brother-in-law, Serenity sighed. Was marriage truly the grave of love? Her sister endured domestic violence from her brother-in-law less than 3 years into their marriage. Serenity. Zachary's calls from inside the house snapped Serenity back to reality from her deep thoughts. After she responded to him, Zachary added, "I made you something for your hangover. Have a drink before you wash up and get to bed. Leave everything else until tomorrow." He understood that Serenity felt sympathy for her sister and wanted to defend her. Since it was late and she wasn't entirely sober, Zachary preferred to avoid a deep discussion with her at that moment. Serenity fell silent, surprised that he had gone into the kitchen to prepare something for her hangover. She stood up, left the balcony, and entered the house. They could divorce 6 months later, provided they didn't invest any emotions into the marriage. After that, they would go their separate ways. With this in mind, Serenity reminded herself to refrain from flirting with him while she was drunk. They should remain a married couple in name only, maintaining a respectful distance from one another. Zachary placed the drink on the dining table. As Serenity entered the house, he said quietly, "I'll leave. The drink is here. Please clean up after you finish." He turned around and headed to his room. As usual, he locked the door behind him to prevent her from snooping and coming in. Chapter 150. A few minutes later, Serenity muttered to herself, "Do you really think I want to go into your room? Even if you begged me one day, I would refuse to set foot inside." Realizing she also had a habit of locking her bedroom door, Serenity stopped her rambling. Ultimately, this was a side effect of marrying at first sight. After gulping down the hangover cure that Zachary had prepared for her, Serenity returned to her room and went to bed for the night. It was a peaceful night. The next day, Serenity awoke to the sun streaming onto her face. She fumbled around her nightstand for her phone and checked the time. It was past 7 o'clock. Even as an early riser, Serenity rarely got up this late. She typically woke up by 6 in the morning. This was likely the result of having just one glass of wine the previous night. Fortunately, she didn't wake up with a headache. However, she was feeling hungry. Serenity had felt guilty for her sister the night before, which had led her to eat very little at her sister's place. Now, the hunger was settling in. She quickly got dressed, brushed her teeth, and left her room. As she was about to head to the kitchen to start breakfast, she noticed a breakfast spread on the dining table. It was her favorite full breakfast, complete with bacon, sausages, hash browns, pancakes, and coffee. Zachary emerged from the kitchen, holding perfectly cooked sunny-side-up eggs. Seeing that Serenity was awake, he said softly, "I didn't see you when I got up, so I went out to get breakfast. I made some eggs." "I thought you cooked everything yourself," she said, also intending to compliment him on his potential as a great chef. It turned out he had ordered takeout. Since Serenity was hungry, she took a seat and helped herself to a sausage. "This sausage tastes great. I don't think you got the food from the restaurants around here." While many local restaurants offered a full breakfast menu, the flavors often fell short. Hotel restaurants tended to provide more savory options. "I drove to the Wiltspoon Hotel for breakfast. They have a good variety, and everything is made from scratch. Their food tastes incredible. I figured I might as well treat myself to the best around," Zachary said. In truth, Zachary had instructed his bodyguards to pick up takeout from the hotel. "I agree. I prefer to indulge in the finest food available," he added. Serenity sampled Zachary's eggs and realized they were quite good. With a smile, she remarked, "Mr. York, I can't believe you have the potential to become a chef." Zachary was momentarily speechless. Once the couple was nearly full, Zachary suddenly advised, "Serenity, it's best not to confront your brother-in-law today." "Why not?" she asked. "You should discuss with your sister whether she wants to continue her marriage. If they're looking to reconcile, as her sister-in-law, you shouldn't try to teach your brother-in-law a lesson. While you can't act like nothing happened, it never hurts to ask. Even though you have a strong bond with your sister, she and her husband are committed for the long haul. If you create a scene, it may hinder their ability to move on. What if they decide to make up? You could end up being the villain, and your sister might hold you responsible for confronting your brother-in-law." Zachary had never been married before Serenity, so he lacked first-hand experience in maintaining a marriage. However, he had heard stories about families supporting women after disputes with their spouses. In the end, the couple could not coexist. The woman even held her family responsible for her unsuccessful marriage. This was largely because she had never